We have now entered Channel 3 of remote viewing. Thank you for sticking with us. We have plenty more awesomeness to share with you. Cyrus, my main man, where are we going from here?
Well, let's just go down the list that we've already created here. With
Wait, okay, so we're going to follow the rules now. I guess.
A title I believe that you were the one who saw. I didn't actually get to the, I'm sure, superlative documentary on superheroes called, appropriately enough, Superheroes.
Yes, this enigmatic title, Superheroes, is actually a documentary about, it's an interesting portrait of, quote, real-life superheroes, people that...
like Phoenix Jones?
Like Phoenix Jones, but unfortunately, for some reason, he's not featured, which I find strange.
Maybe he was asking for too much money.
Or maybe he was busy macing a crowd of people. Who knows?
Or being arrested.
It's hard to say. But the interesting thing about this documentary is it does cover kind of the full gamut from, like, the sadly deluded to the oddly inspirational to the borderline sociopathic. There's one guy, I believe his name is Master Legend. He operates out of Orlando, and all he does is walk around the city. He goes back to his van every few minutes and drinks a beer, and then he goes...
Every few minutes,
it seems like. And then he goes and, like, kicks doors open that are locked, like, in business buildings, and he goes to a bar and has another beer, and then he, like, jumps around on lobby fountains. He's basically just a drunk asshole.
He's what Rubio would be if he was a superhero.
Yeah, and it's like he's being featured next to people like the, I want to say the New York Initiative.
Yeah.
Which is basically a group of people. They have an actual free runner in their group.
Yeah.
And then they have two guys whose sole motivation for doing this is that they wanted to beat muggers and rapists to death.
So these guys presumably have gone to jail by the time they're talking about?
No, because they wear masks.
They do that, yeah. Okay.
And the documentary crew is very careful not to reveal their true identity.
Boy, I wonder though. It's not like you're a psychologist if you're like, if you're a documentary filmmaker where like the law will protect you. If you know who those guys are, don't you have to tell the police?
I really don't, because I think the way they get away with it is they talk about it, but they never actually show them doing it.
Okay, fair enough.
So I think they're protected in so much as you don't actually see them beating people to death, but they do talk about...
I don't think so, though. I don't think you're obligated as a citizen to, like...
Wouldn't it be aiding and abetting, though? Or obstruction of justice?
I guess it depends on the laws in the state where you are. I'm not really sure.
No. We don't have a legal expert here at remote viewing, as you can tell.
No, we do not.
No.
But
as we drink alcohol and talk about illicit drugs.
We may indeed need a legal expert at some point.
Sooner rather than later.
But yeah, I mean, it's fairly interesting. There's really great editing in it. They do a lot of stuff with art. Like, they'll freeze frame and turn it into a comic book panel, which is a lot of fun. But the thing that doesn't make sense about it is that Stan Lee is like highly credited on, like, it's basically like Stan Lee presents superheroes.
Sure.
And he shows up at the beginning and at the end to deliver these really generic comments about, hey, true believers, like, hey, if they want to go out and contribute to their community, like Spider-Man, that's great. And it's like, okay, but do you even know who we're talking about or what this documentary's about, or is that just what you say in your office when you're by yourself?
Sure.
I just can't stop talking about the Fantastic Four. It's like, shut up. But yeah, I mean, other than that...
Stan Lee is a caricature of himself at this point, and that's how he makes a living.
And it's just sad because it's like, you're not really involved in this. They're using your name to sell the movie. It deserves to be seen, but that's just kind of cheap, I thought.
Yeah. Well, what are you going to do? Jack Kirby's dead, so...
Yeah, this is true.
So overall, worth seeing?
Overall, definitely worth seeing.
Okay.
Definitely a very fascinating take on people that are just fed up with not feeling like they're making a difference anymore.
All right, so here's one of the titles I was super excited about this year. In fact, I was thinking about making two lists this year because there were so many indie films that I really, truly loved this year. Mm-hmm. And there were, actually almost equally as many Hollywood big production films.
It was a good year for independent film.
Yeah, it really was. And this is one that would be at one of the top films for that. This is Bellflower, which is this company put this out, Oscilloscope Laboratories, who have recently become
great company.
Yeah, I just really in love with the stuff they put out. Like they put out rare exports.
Which is fabulous.
Which
do
is
you guys know who started Oscilloscope?
No.
Adam Yauch from the Beastie Boys
started
Oscilloscope Labs. Yeah.
Did not know that.
The Beastie Boys are the reason that Oscilloscope Laboratories exists, and one of their first releases one of their first acquisitions was Dear Zachary, the documentary that just wrecks people left and right.
That messed me up.
Dropping the mad knowledge, yo.
This is why
Oscilloscope Labs is a great company, and they've really turned it on recently, picking up indie stuff off the festival circuit.
Yeah, and they're really great at picking the super interesting stuff. I also like the fact that they have, all right, so for instance, their packaging, even though it's entirely cardboard
and recyclable,
feels really sturdy. It has a neat design to it. They put
this weird extra piece in there to kind of just create a cushion, so that it doesn't feel flimsy. And it's like, it's so simple and probably doesn't cost them anything. Why aren't more companies doing that?
Yeah,
and it gives them the opportunity to include a lot of art from the film or other, quotes and booklets and all kinds of interesting stuff.
Yeah, like I said, it's a very attractive packaging. You can, if such things are something that's your concern, you can feel good that it's
if this is your concern, dude.
It's green packaging.
Yeah.
And Bellflower is the perfect type of film for these guys to choose, because they do pick films that aren't the sort of dry indies. They pick very kind of, on the edge, very, I don't know, almost kind of angry. Like they do a good. There's one that.
Wait, are you suggesting that Bellflower is angry?
Maybe a little. Like
I think you're really interesting because Cyrus obviously really likes Bellflower.
I do.
I know Brian really does not like Bellflower, and I am squarely in the middle of it.
I fucking hate this movie.
This should be an interesting discussion then. Anyway, we actually reviewed this on the site, although I don't know if it made it to the final site front or not. I remember Corey was like, I don't know how I feel about it. And Leon and Tony were like, we hate this movie. I was like, I love it. So I don't know.
It's very, very divisive. It's not that there's not a middle ground, because I find myself squarely there, but it is the type of movie that I think the vast majority of people are either going to love or hate.
Well, and it's famous for that already, the fact that it is so polarizing with how people feel about it. What you've got the story is of these two guys who are obviously lifelong friends who, for fun, they're big fans of the Road Warrior, in particular Lord Humongous, and they've got this project where they've been converting a car for years that they call Medusa into the car from Mad Max, complete with big flamethrowers that actually work and various different little, like it's got surveillance cameras in it, like it did in the movie, that you could see like stuff going on around into the sides, smoke screen, all that stuff. By the way, all that stuff actually is real in that car. It wasn't special effects. All that's built into the car.
They drove it here
driving
for
around.
South by Southwest, and set off the flamethrowers outside the South Lamar Draft House fairly near flammable people and substances.
It was very impressive. I was pleased that no one caught on fire, but I was also pleased that they did it. Anyway, so they've got this kind of, that kind of guy bonding thing based on a shared interest that gets screwed up when a girl enters into the picture. Evan Gladell, by the way, plays the main character Woodrow, and Jesse Wiseman plays Millie. This girl's free spirit type who they fall for each other right off the bat. There's an instant connection between the two, and it's immediately turns into where the other friend, leftover friend, is a third wheel. Over time, you're not sure where this is going because it feels like it's telling an apocalypse story visually. I mean, because the director did this amazing thing where he created his own cameras completely from, what is it? It says from a prototype Silicon Imaging SI2K Mini. I don't know much about what that is.
An SI2K it's a high-end video camera, probably most notably used on Slumdog Millionaire.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
But it's incredibly modular. In fact, the reason that Danny Boyle used it on Slumdog Millionaire is because basically you can take the lens unit off and it's tethered back to like the sensor and not the sensor. The sensor and the lens are together, and it's tethered back to like the recording area of the camera. So Boyle's DP was running through the streets of Mumbai chasing the kids, basically holding the lens, in front of him, and had a backpack with the rest of the camera and a MacBook Pro connected to the camera with the screen flipped around so that Boyle could be behind him and see what he was shooting in front of him.
Right. I remember hearing that.
So it's already a modular system, and they basically ripped it apart. Mainly, I'm kind of guessing here, but it seems like what they really wanted to do was kind of do an elaborate tilt shift photography type of thing. So it seems like it was mostly ripped apart to rejigger the lens mount in some way to get these weird focus shifts that they have throughout the film.
If it's not painfully obvious by now, in addition to writing for FSR, Luke does work in the film industry. I'm dead serious. He does a lot of editing, and he's been involved with a lot of local productions here, which is why when he speaks, it sounds like he's reading from a filmmaker's encyclopedia.
But that's all off the top of his head.
It really is. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, we're sitting here
Well,
just like...
I do have my Jim Beam and Coke. So.
It's your instant recall juice.
Indeed.
So, you know, this has a very distinctive look to it that definitely is going after a sort of dirty, muddled, post-apocalyptic feel, even though ultimately what this is a relationship film. It's just a very apocalyptic relationship.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that it feels like they're building to an apocalypse, because they are. They're building to, you know, the end of Woodrow's world, essentially.
Sure.
As much as he knows it. And it's... Salisbury's going to refute a lot of these points, but
notes. Keep talking.
What it's going for, whether you agree with how it gets there or how it executes that or not, what it's trying to do is, you know, kind of mirror that devastation and feeling that the world has come to an end. You know, the first time a girl breaks your heart.
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
The unfortunate part is that it tries to get there with this Brohemian hipster strokefest. Like right down to the ironic mustaches and the we're gonna have our first date be a terrible date on purpose. Isn't that precious? No. And quite frankly, I think Cyrus is being generous using the term story, because this movie is really about two guys that want to build their own car and their own flamethrower, and then one of them happens to hook up with a girl. That doesn't really work out, so he decides that he is completely like this walking entity of rage and gets in these meaningless fights and drinks too much, and it's like, oh, okay, but unless you're Hemingway, like that can't carry a movie, and you're hipster Hemingway, essentially.
See, I gotta disagree with you, because I think while it's true that these people are definitely hipsters in that angry way that people like to apply the term these days, so what? You know, they are indeed still just people that are caught up,
I don't find
young
them
people
interesting.
Caught up in a fashion of the time, as it were. And I think in many ways this borrows heavily in theme from people like Alex Cox, and what he was doing with films like Repo Man was like, wow, this is a punk rock movie for our time in a lot of senses.
Well, I will say, just as far as Woodrow going into a rage, he absolutely does. But holy shit, like,
yeah, it's
the impetus for that is mind-boggling, and I won't ruin it because it does happen towards the end of the film, but fuck, I would have been pissed too. Holy shit.
There's some really strange things that happen towards the end of this film that really upset some people and really amazed others.
Sure.
I personally, it blew me away what they decided to do with the end of the movie. A lot of people were just angry. It depends on, you know, I mean, the whole film is set in a tentative reality anyway, and that's clear right from the get-go. But
I've kind of been playing Cyrus' side. I will play Salisbury's side for a little bit here. With the best friend character is just poorly conceived,
he just pops
poorly
up.
executed. Yeah, he disappears for a little. His motivation is never clear.
He pops up to say, "No worries, dude."
Woodrow.
Okay.
Woodrow gets the shit beat out of him and is recovering from this, and the best friend character just kind of like decides to continue building the car and sets Woodrow up in a little chair and, you know, and then gives the car to Wood. There's just a lot of things that happen that don't make sense from the best friend's perspective, and in more than one way, Woodrow kind of fucks him over. I agree with intentionally, that. In ways that he knows this is going to
fucking unmotivated.
Yeah, there's no reason for him to fuck. I mean, aside from the fact that guys like to stick their dick in pussies.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's some motivation when you're that age. You're just like, you know what? I know that guy's my best friend and all, but I'm going to
But he never even seems upset about it. And he finds out about it and never seems upset. The best friend character is just... It's one of the weak links, I feel, in the script.
I feel like the problem with the best friend wasn't so much the fact that he was a weak character, so much as that it seems like they're establishing him as a primary character right from the get-go.
Sure.
And then by the time the second reel starts, it's clear that he is a secondary character at best in the whole film.
Looking back on it, it's Woodrow's story, but that's not clear from the first.
But that's not how it's introduced as a film. At first, as Brian said, it feels like it's going to be a two-film about these guys and their fucking awesome car they're building, which is admittedly the movie that you're hoping for.
Which, even still, is kind of a weak script. Just a movie about two guys building a car. I mean, granted, I love Road Warrior. So this movie should have, reached out and grabbed me from frame one, but I couldn't get past all of the little precious cinematography that they were doing and these characters that are, just like enragingly hipster, and they can't have a normal decent conversation. It's always conversations about I shit you not, conversations about, do you like my facial hair like this? I don't know if I really like this. And she's like, no, it's good. Like, does this shirt work? I don't know. Hey, do you want to get some more beer? Hey, we should do this contest. It'd be totally great if we ate some crickets. It's like, seriously, how can anybody like these characters?
How does Salisbury not like a movie wherein the main character has a car that has literally a whiskey dispenser in the passenger seat?
That should give you a clue as to how much I fucking hate this movie. That couldn't even win me over.
It's a shame. Those are the little bells and whistles that totally made this a complete piece for me.
Don't get me wrong, I'm stealing that idea from my own car.
Shoots flame also has a whiskey dispenser.
Two different cars.
Yeah, that's true. It's a different car. But still!
And they built a flame, like, you're focusing on the car. They built a goddamn flamethrower that works.
Yeah, they did. As well. Yeah, they had their own flamethrower. And not just a pussy one either. That thing's got like
it's a fucking incredible flame.
Like, oh my god.
And that's the thing. Like, they had to have built that. Like, I'm assuming here, but I'm assuming that they built the fucking car. They built that goddamn flamethrower too.
Yeah.
And they have that wide shot where you're just like, holy shit, that's going to kill someone.
They're the post-ironic frat boy Tony Stark. That's great. Hallelujah.
Obviously, we have different opinions on that one, and that is okay.
It is.
And this comes, even though you may not like it, but there's an oscilloscope, and they put together a reasonably nice passel of extras to go with it.
Oh,
absolutely.
Yeah, lots of good stuff on here.
And I will say that, while the three of us find ourselves representing all areas of the spectrum on this film, I think it's at least worth a watch to see if it's your cup of tea.
Absolutely.
There's some interesting stuff going on. And it's worth checking out for two reasons. It's worth checking out to see if it's something you might be interested in, and also to give money to Oscilloscope Labs.
Oh, yes. As much as I hate this movie, I say definitely support Oscilloscope. So if this sounds like anything that even might remotely interest you, buy the Oscilloscope DVD.
And as just a side mention, came out shortly before this and in October, so it didn't make our list. But Rare Exports came out, and that's by them too, and that's the best Christmas movie you will have seen in years.
Absolutely. And we were talking about westerns earlier. They also put out Meek's Cutoff.
Oh, well, which I hated. But
yeah, I heard was really good, but
some people loved it. I'll be glad to loan you a copy.
See, there you go. Lovely.
All right, so moving on. This is actually one of my favorite books by Neil Gaiman, Neverwhere, and I did not even realize when I read the book that it was actually written first as a television series or a mini-series.
Yeah, it seems kind of backward.
BBC
Usually these kind of things start as, written source, and then they become either TV or movie. And this way
sometimes with BBC, you'd be surprised, like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Television series first. Actually, it was a radio show first, then it was a television series, then it was a book.
So the British just do things backwards,
apparently,
is what we're trying to say.
Or is it us?
They keep calling everything Fanny.
I don't know. They say aluminium. I think we got it right.
And yogurt.
What is yogurt? God damn you people.
Doesn't that freak you out? Yogurt?
A little, yeah.
Yeah, it kind of makes my...
Like Yamamere yogurt from the Pittsburgh Penguins? Jesus Christ, sports references all over the place tonight.
I blame
But they say
guys.
herbs, and I'm with that.
Yeah, I'm with that too.
Fucking H in it.
I know, I hate that. Herbs.
Yeah, I'm going to steal other people's jokes. I'm afraid.
Go Eddie Izzard.
So, anyway, this was written by Neil Gaiman, who actually oversees it closely. I don't know what to say about it without spoiling too much, because
it's hard to describe.
So much of the pleasure of this is in the little discoveries that are constantly in it, and the little just touches and flourishes. But to just get to the start, it starts with this character Richard Mayhew, which is a Scottish guy living in London. He's engaged to this woman who clearly is too rich for him and has big ideas of how they're going to be this power couple, whereas he's just a nice guy.
He's such a nice guy, and she is such a bitch.
She is an uber bitch, and on their way to a big important dinner where he can meet her boss, he sees this injured girl named Dor lying on the ground who's asking for help.
She's bleeding profusely.
Yeah, so he's the type of guy who's like, look, honey, you go to the dinner. I got to help this girl. He ends up bringing her back to her apartment and fucking the shit out. No, wait, I'm sorry. That was my fantasy when I was watching it.
Oh, right.
So,
see, mine was that it was Peter Mayhew and it was actually Chewbacca, so...
You wouldn't want to have to pick up Peter Mayhew. So he brings her back to the apartment, not to fuck the shit out of her, but to ostensibly heal, because she says, I can't be brought to a hospital. And it turns out that there's these two really creepy fucking looking guys, who Mr. Croup and Mr. Vandemar, who are looking for her everywhere and are very, right off the bat, extremely murderous and pretty psycho.
Yeah.
Like the big one, the big less talkative one of the pair, Mr. Vandemar, bites the head off a rat and eats the rat in an early scene, just to be clear that this isn't a regular human.
They actually reminded me a lot of Mr. Wint and Mr. Kidd from Diamonds Are Forever.
Nice. I think that was intentional.
You think?
In fact, I think
that was,
it was.
If so, it's a great reference.
So he decides that he's going to help this girl, at least to get back to her people. She says, we'll call on this guy named the Marquis de Carabas, which was played by Patterson Joseph, who incidentally was one of the main frontrunners to be Doctor Who before David Tennant.
He was going to be the first black Doctor Who.
Yeah, he was. He was in the final casting call and didn't quite make it to the next level. And he should have, goddammit, because Patterson Joseph is awesome. Anyway, so you're like, okay, I've got her now. Thanks a lot for your help. Never, ever think about us again. The problem is the next day when he goes to work, no one knows who he is. Yeah. No one even acknowledges that he really exists. He'll be practically screaming into people's faces, hey, it's me, Richard Mayhew. What's the deal? And they stop as if someone just threw water in their face and go, oh, hello, I didn't see you there. I'm sorry, can I help you, sir?
Yeah.
His fiance doesn't recognize him. He gets home and there are people already moving stuff out of his house.
Yeah.
It turns out that if you spend too much time with the homeless, as these people are in Neil Gaiman's fantasy world, other people stop in London above, just stop noticing you. It's not that you don't exist altogether. Their brains are so programmed to just not acknowledge that you exist that you kind of don't.
Yeah,
anymore.
it's wearing its metaphor here on its dirty, tattered sleeve.
Right.
But I love the fact that they take kind of this fringe element of society and attribute like fantasy elements to it. I thought that was really fascinating.
Well, and that's the neat thing. They create a whole fantasy world in London below with this like, there's magic and all that stuff, but really it's this whole series of fiefdoms and royalty and rules that all go on under the streets with varieties of crazy homeless people you've seen before, only he, like I said, he attaches magical significance to them. And it's Gaiman at his absolute best doing what he does, those sort of things, taking the regular mundane of life and saying, no, there's a hidden and awesome underbelly to it.
I love the Marquis de Carabas haircut in this movie because he's got like yellow short hair in the front and then dreadlocks in the back. Yeah. So he kind of looks like Rodman Vanilli. Like, it's very strange.
It is an odd look. But Patterson Joseph is so great in that role, and he's one of the main characters in this. He's kind of the Han Solo-esque Malcolm Reynolds character of the series. It's a six-part series. They're only half-hour apiece, so it won't take you that long to get through it. And believe me, you'll just be sad that it's over when it's over. This is the 15th anniversary of this thing, so they fixed it up a bit. It's a lot cleaner than it existed on previous versions, as well as being anamorphic now, even though it is not widescreen, of course. And it comes with a brand new commentary with Gaiman and several of the other contributors. So I gotta say, I really couldn't recommend this more. It's one of those films or one of those series that if you're at all a Gaiman fan or a fantasy fan or a BBC fan, you have to pick this up.
Yeah, this is something Cyrus turned me on to, and I haven't seen the whole thing yet, but I have really, really liked what I've seen.
Okay, well, let's move on and talk about Beginners. Now, I saw this way back at South by Southwest, which is pretty way back now. But you just watched this, am I correct?
Yes, yeah, I just saw this. Luke actually saw it quite a while ago, though.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I saw it back at South.
Yeah, and it was one of those films, and I even saw it in the morning screening, and I was all hungover from a midnight show the night before. So even when we did our review, I think I was like, I don't even know how accurate I'm being about this movie, because I was not in the mood for a very slow, not laborious, although it seemed that way at the time, but like deliberately paced film about the relationship between a father and his son after the father has already died. And it's, what makes it more interesting, you've got Christopher Plummer as the father, and you've got Ewan McGregor as the son. And we already know right from the beginning, Plummer's already died of cancer, I believe. Mm-hmm. And as we're going back through his memories, Ewan McGregor's memories of his relationship with his father, it more or less starts from after his mother died, when his father came out as being gay, and not just a little. He comes out a lot. Starting a relationship with a much younger man, just absorbing into the lifestyle instantly. And it's not presented in a jokey way. It's just, it is as it is. In fact, it's actually based on the real story of what happened to the director, his father, who was 75 when his wife died, and he said, "I'm gay!" Like in...
Surprise!
Like in Brain Candy. I mean... It was like that. The whole neighborhood sang and danced.
Nice Kids in the Hall reference. I like that.
Oh, thank you. That should become important later.
Yeah.
I don't know. A lot of this has to do with like the differences between the father and son and the way that they are the same coming into play as after his father's death. Ewan McGregor's character is trying to start a new relationship with a woman and having big difficulties doing it. Not because he's gay, presumably, but because
Presumably.
of other difficulties. But what did you guys think?
Oh, I think it's a piece of shit.
Oh, you hated it? Okay.
I really do. I think it's just a terrible fucking film. I think... I hate it when people are like, you should read my review, but if you have any interest in reading my review, it is up on Film School Rejects, in which I use the line that it is stuck so far up its own ass that it sees the world through its belly button. And I feel like I earned that in the review, but I swear to God, this movie is just pretentious as all hell, and it's, it's one of those things, it's about, rich white people, and it's like first world problems, and it's a bunch of shit that you don't care about. It's like, Ewan McGregor has this gold job, this amazing job. And there's this whole subplot where, he's become very famous for one style of graphic design, and so this big band comes in and wants that design for their album cover, and he's so caught up in his own world that he can't just give them what they want. And he wants to do like this 13-part series on sadness and loss, and you're like, dude, just do your fucking job. Like, I'm sorry that your life is shitty, but do your fucking job.
It would be like somebody making an indie film about one of us not wanting to review a Michael Bay film because we're much more interested in more artistic endeavors. It's like, yeah, but that's your goddamn job, so just do your job.
If that film came around to proving to that person how stupid they were for feeling that way in the first place, then I would totally watch that.
I mean, it's not devoid of value. Christopher Plummer does a fine job, and there are some interesting things. I just feel like Ewan McGregor stumbles through it as if he's stoned.
So detached emotionally from everything.
There's nothing to latch onto in his character, and Melanie Laurent, as beautiful as she is weird for weird's sake. It seems to me like the problems in their relationship seem to be manufactured strictly because there need to be problems.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't feel genuine at all.
Not because there should be any problems between them, aside from the fact that, McGregor is sleepwalking through the damn film.
Yeah.
And I will admit, the talking dog is funny.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about
the dog.
McGregor
and the dog have this weird relationship where McGregor understands the dog speaking English, which is hilarious.
Right, which is even in the movie's context says, okay, he admits that he's imagining this.
Yeah, totally.
But anybody who has a pet, and probably people who live alone, I assure you that my cat never shuts up. I don't mean meow.
The biggest problem with the film is that invariably, and to me it felt like it was about a dozen times. In reality, it's probably about 4.
Right.
The film will stop and do a photo montage of, this is 1975, this is who the president is, this is what happiness was like, this is what being gay was like. It's like, oh my... And it goes on ad nauseum, and it's just like...
so pretentious.
Shut up! I don't give a shit. I'm sorry.
I'll say this now, I hate using the term pretentious because I don't think it really means anything. It's like, pretentious is
I
so based on your own perspective, there's no solid set meaning of it. I think that movie is arty for arty's sake. Really, because that other guy explained it pretty well why it was there. Well... It's arty for arty's sake from where I stand. And so it's like one of those, it's not fair to use. Because
it's a difficult word to use in objective criticism when you're trying to debate someone.
Right, so I've tried to delete that from my dictionary of terms to use. But I actually felt pretty much everything that you're saying. I thought it was laborious. I was sitting there, and I know, admittedly, I was having trouble keeping awake, except for when the dog was talking. But I was like, okay, I get it. He's gay. They had a difficult relationship already. That just made it weirder, and now he can't fuck this hot chick.
Okay, well, I mean, I actually found it... I still think it's pretentious, and this is completely accidental and it works against itself, but I found it, after a while, appropriate that they were just stopping to show these, disjointed images of things that you're like, that may be interesting, it may not, I don't know, because there's no context to it. Because I feel like a lot of the movie is just all of these, marginally interesting plot points that might be, worthy of introspection and digging deeper into, but they don't assign any emotional weight to any of it. So it's like you're just looking at a bunch of pictures of shit, and it's like you can't invest in a picture without just looking at a photograph.
If it's by Van Gogh or something.
Right, but there's emotional context to
or
a Van Gogh.
Titties in it.
There's not an emotional context to me snapping a Polaroid of the three of us sitting here right now.
No, I mean you can literally invest in that.
Oh, that's a good point. Yes. Bravo.
Okay.
Bravo, sir. Thank you.
Actually, a whole discussion could be had out of Cyrus's point about the word pretentious. But I will just say, without using that word whatsoever, that looking at the special features, it appears that there is a short film about the movie on the disc, and I will leave you to come up with a new word for what that is. But that is something that rhymes with suspicious.
I think that even people who are generally credited as being like across the board really brilliant can do stuff that is that navel gazing. Which actually I'm going to skip down the list a little bit here because I want to talk about Cave of Forgotten Dreams, which of course is a new Werner Herzog film, which is a documentary about the Chauvet Cave in southern France, which I guess it's not recently discovered, but somewhat recently, all things considered, where the oldest cave paintings, much older than we thought people were drawing anything anywhere, were discovered. 32,000-year-old cave paintings, and some of them showing remarkably mature artistic styles, all things considered. Yeah, you were like, nobody had ever seen anything like this by a good 10, 15,000 years.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, it's amazing. And Herzog goes in there as much as he's allowed to with a double camera setup so that he can get as close as he can simulate a 3D thing. Because in theaters, and indeed if you have one of those expensive fancy schmancy 3D devices, home TVs, you can watch it that way.
What
Are we back to the
accent did you
Western?
just take?
I don't know.
We're back to the Western section all of a sudden.
It's the only accent I can do.
Okay. It's Doctor Who.
And, but to bring that to the full point, we'll talk about the movie itself. This comes with an extra feature on it that's listed as a short film by the director Werner Herzog called Ode to the Dawn of Man.
Oh my shit.
It's 39 minutes, and guess what? It's just a featurette about how the score was put together. It's not even mildly a short film, as it were. It is a featurette.
It's certainly not a short film if it's 39 minutes.
I know, it's not a short film.
And in this case, I'll completely agree with you, but I will say that I want every Werner Herzog movie to include a Werner Herzog short film, because that guy's short films are fucking insane.
Well, this isn't one of them.
This isn't Werner Herzog eats his shoe?
No, this is
Oh,
him.
that's
This is him
that
just
one is
watching the people compose the music, and that's about it.
Yeah, I'll agree with you there. Although,
Eh.
I really liked this movie.
I know you did.
And this is a
Did
movie
you
that...
not?
I didn't dislike it.
Okay.
I don't see why people are as in love with it as they are.
Well, I can tell you why I
There's
like
a lot
it.
of really, really interesting stuff in there.
Oh, no question. Would not argue with that whatsoever. But, Brian, you have the podium, sir.
Well, I can only speak for myself, but one of the things that I really liked about it is that I intentionally avoided this movie when it came out on video for a couple of... one reason is that I didn't understand the concept of a 3D movie that's a documentary based on cave drawings, which are themselves 2D.
Sure.
I just didn't understand how that was going to work. And, admittedly, I didn't see the movie in 3D, so I don't know how it looked in theaters. But watching it in 2D, I was like, oh, well, you know what? I could see where there is some, like there are drawings that are on cave protrusions, and there's, simulated movement that the artists actually put in there. In fact, they talk about how the mammals, like the buffaloes and horses, are drawn with 6 and 8 legs to simulate movement. Like, it's almost a proto-form of cinema.
Yeah.
So to me, it's like I can see where in 3D there is kind of a movement, and there is texture, and there are things that could definitely serve a 3D film. But I was really just fascinated by the subject matter, and that was a surprise to me as much as anything else.
I felt like this had about 30 minutes of awe to it. We're like, oh my god, that's so amazing they found this. I mean, look at those pictures, that's amazing. And then another hour of, okay, you already showed us that, and now it's just Werner Herzog going, so, do you think that this represents man's spirituality and the whole... Shut up, Werner!
I was a little distracted the whole time, though, because hearing Werner Herzog speak, I think of that internet meme where he reads Curious George.
You're right.
So I'm just like, the whole time he's talking, I'm just like...
I would have liked it if there was a version of this that dubbed over his reading of Curious George, because there is that point where I was just like, oh, shut the fuck up, dude!
I would have liked it if he had asked Nicolas Cage to do some of the narration, so...
One of the neat things I think he does visually, though, they talk a lot about early on how they're limited with how much they can use for lights because they don't want to damage. There's all sorts of considerations to not damage anything at all. Like there's a walkway they have to stay on. They can only have but so many lights in a specific kind. But they talk about how early man when he was down there, because it was just a cave then too. I would have seen all this stuff by flickering torchlight. So there's a lot of visual stuff that the idea to give these pictures the illusion of movement, they try changing the lighting effects as you're watching the shots of them and moving it around. And actually, that is kind of interesting to watch. It's kind of mesmerizing, almost zen-like after a while watching it. But you do indeed have to be in exactly the right mood for it.
And apparently I was.
There's 10-minute stretches of this film with almost no dialogue, just the music, and just watching light flicker over cave art. And okay, that's great if that's your thing.
I think they hooked
terrific.
me in early with the idea of proto-cinema. And also the laser projection of the cave, which I thought was really interesting.
That was kind of neat.
Where they had like so many different points of laser analysis where they could actually map like a 3D image of the entire cave.
Yeah.
And also the cinematography outside of the cave I thought was really impressive. Like there's a shot where the camera is hovering just over this little pond and then goes over like a low-hanging stone archway. So it's clear there's no way it was like attached to a helicopter.
Right.
Because it doesn't make sense. But
Or like an RC helicopter, maybe like a small.
Possibly, but it's so cool and it sweeps right through there and
then flips around and goes back. It's the Pont d'Arc. It's the big stone archway that they show there, and it goes through and then turns around all in a continuous shot and comes back through it.
Well, once again, one of the best things about this is indeed the cinematography, which is pretty remarkable considering that inside the cave they were so limited with what they could do.
Yeah.
And they still managed to make it really watchable in that sense. I feel like it got brought down a lot because they just ran out of things to really say other than just conjecture about the philosophy of it all, which I just kind of find almost always to be kind of a pointless navel-gazing sort of affair with that much distance involved. I don't know. I mean, a lot of people obviously felt very different. Brian, you obviously felt very different. But I still think this is a solid watch. I'd be curious to see it in 3D as well, just to see how it is.
Yeah, now I'm kind of curious.
Yeah, I have to go to one of my rich friends' houses. And
That's not me, that's for sure.
That is not you. Well, let's move on to a title that I don't think Brian got to see, but Luke did get to see. And I have reported very fully on how I feel about this. The most banal film of the year, and offensive to the point of being offensive.
Oh, I think it's highly it's offensive to logic.
And it's called Larry Crowne. Now, this is directed and stars Tom Hanks, who of course did That Thing You Do, which was a really well received movie.
Fabulous film. One of my favorites.
And so it was kind of surprising that almost across the board, everyone kind of went, the whole universe went meh.
So are you saying this film is not his crowning glory?
No, it's just him Larry clowning around.
Oh! Honestly, I love Tom Hanks. I do. And Julia Roberts to a certain extent. Like
sometimes she's wonderful.
This should have been gold, all things considered. And what I honestly feel like is that this is Tom Hanks and his wife Rita Wilson doing a favor for their friend Nia Vardalos.
Yes, who I personally can't stand, by the way.
No, I can't stand her
I think
either.
My Big Fat Greek Wedding is one of the most overrated films ever made.
And the biggest problems with Larry Crowne are the script. The screenplay is terrible for this film.
Oh, it's awful.
It's just ridiculous. And Hanks' name is on it, and I honestly feel like Hanks just went in and said, all right, look, Rita wants to do this, and I love my wife.
Yeah.
And the script is currently unshootable. I'm going to make it shootable. It still won't be good, but it will be shootable. By sheer force
of charm of the actors involved. And the film's only real saving grace is, in fact, that Tom Hanks and Julia Roberts are so goddamn charming in it.
They are, but oh my fucking god. Like...
Yeah. No, there's so much that goes terribly wrong in the story.
They're literally just logic problems. Like... the scene that comes to mind immediately is there's a scene where Julia Roberts and her husband break up, and Larry Crowne comes by on his scooter and sees her at a bus stop and gives her a ride home. She has had nothing to drink that we're aware of. She went to dinner, so it's possible that she had a glass of wine at dinner. She has no bottle of alcohol to speak of. But by the time they get from the bus stop to her front door, she's hammered.
Yeah.
And not just kind of drunk.
It is merely
hammered.
The intoxicating presence of Larry Crowne.
Yeah, it is, apparently. It's just stuff like that makes no goddamn sense. And
yeah, if it was an Ed Wood movie, people would be like, well, that's bad filmmaking. But if Tom Hanks is directing it, then it's like, oh, well, that's an art film.
Not only is she that hammered, but apparently by the morning she has, A, no hangover, and B, was sober enough to pull all of her husband's stuff out into the yard and hook it back up, like his complex computer system. And Bryan Cranston is apparently a terrible husband because he looks at the tamest internet porn of any man alive.
Seriously. It's like he goes and surfs he goes and surfs boobies on Google Images with all the filters on.
Yeah, she's pissed at him for looking at porn, and I'm using air quotes, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, and it's so this is
the
just...
porn is still images of women in bikinis.
And this is
like
so typical of this writer, Nia how do you say her? Nia
Vardalos.
Vardalos, who is just presents this ridiculously one-sided like picture of men.
Yeah.
And the idea of something is like, you know what? If he looks at porn, he's clearly not the man for you.
You know what?
What man? Then you're looking for gay men. I don't know.
Look at the Facebook
who do look at
profiles.
porn, just not.
If you look at the Facebook profiles of girls you went to high school with, is that porn? Because that's what it sounds like she thinks porn is.
Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah. She has an unrealistic view of the world, and the film is maudlin and it's just,
not
terrible.
funny.
Not funny, no.
It's
And
the meet cute is never
which is
cute.
impressive because it basically has the plot of Community.
Yeah,
And,
yeah. I mean, it should have the plot of Community.
I mean, that's basically
Somebody
the plot.
cancel Larry Crowne, for God's sake.
Yeah, it's like he goes to Tom Hanks. Worked at this company, and they decided they can't keep him because they're looking for people with college degrees. Now due to
That's the other thing. Like, he basically works at Best Buy / Target / Walmart.
Right.
He's happy in his job as like a floor manager. He has no aspersions to get beyond floor manager.
He's clearly very good because he's been employed.
But they're going to fire him
Yeah.
because he can't move past where he is. And it's like, that doesn't make any sense either. Like, no, Target is not going to fire some floor manager who's happy to be making his $13 an hour.
He decides to use his time and to save money to go back to community college to get a degree, and there he meets a very upset teacher played by Julia Roberts, where eventually, of course...
I'm sorry, what was her name?
Mercedes Tainot.
Tano or something? Yeah.
I don't know.
These are not names.
Yeah, I don't know.
Bryan Cranston is horribly wasted
It's
as
even more offensive that
her
Pam
husband.
Grier is in it, and
Wait, Pam Grier's in this?
Pam Grier's in it as like Julia Roberts' teacher friend.
Oh, girl, you shouldn't put up with that.
Oh, it's some shit.
Unless she's also shooting people, like, I don't want to hear her spout that, like, blatant black stereotype.
We've already run it into the ground, but possibly the most egregious thing occurs over the end credits, where Tom Hanks and Julia Roberts are shot on the scooter against green screen, while backgrounds that look like the stock backgrounds from Apple photo booth are plastered behind. I swear at one point there's like a Route 66 theme. It looks like Nia Vardalos' 6-year-old did.
I forgot the one thing I did
post-credits
enjoy was
for this.
George Takei in this.
George
He's one of the
Takei is
teachers.
moderately human.
George Takei is in this?
He actually has a pretty funny little role as another one of the teachers.
Oh my.
All right, so moving on. Here's a movie that I think we can say those. I don't know if you've seen it, Luke. I know you have, Brian, but I suspect that you have.
I have
that
indeed.
I just absolutely adore. Saw long before the American remake came out, which was The Departed, the Martin Scorsese film that, of course, got Scorsese his much deserved, long time coming first Best Director Oscar. But you know what? In a lot of ways, I like this original Hong Kong version a lot better.
I don't know if I would say a lot, but I like it better.
I fell so madly in love with it when I originally saw it, and
Guys,
I saw it.
the title is Infernal Affairs. Apparently, we're never going to get to
Oh,
it.
right, yes. Sorry.
Did
Infernal
I not
Affairs.
say Infernal Affairs?
No,
We started to, and then Beardy over here
Sorry,
decided to step on it.
lots of interrupting. Apologies.
This came out in 2002, Hong Kong film starring the great Andrew Lau and Alan Mack. And it's one of those stories. All right, so it's a very complicated police story, but all the frills and the side plots and all that are cut out of this. This is a direct and to the point thriller, to the point where it's kind of confusing at points. Watching
It's
it
the first time it's incredibly confusing.
Yeah, but you'll want to go watch it again. It's just so dense with information. But basically, it's a cop who is working undercover for the Triads, but the Triads figure out that there is a mole in the Triads, and so they order that undercover cop to discover who the undercover cop is in the Triads. While meanwhile, the Triads have an undercover guy who they sent through the police force to work undercover as a cop for the police force, who, when the police force realize that there is a Triad member in the police force, order him to uncover that person. So
if you've seen The Departed, this should all sound very familiar because it
is the exact plot.
A lot of the plot is completely intact from original to remake.
yeah, absolutely it is.
And in fact, a lot of the ins and outs are the end is slightly different, and I'm with Cyrus on this one. I actually like the original ending a little better.
I think it's more satisfying.
I do too.
Absolutely.
You've got
But Tony Leung and Andy Lau are fabulous
And
in this,
Anthony
playing
Wong.
off of each other. Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah, who is never ever bad in anything he does.
Nope.
God, did you ever see the Untold Story? with Anthony Wong?
No.
Where he was based on a true story of a serial killer who was killing people and making them into meat buns.
I've actually borrowed
them.
this movie from you. I haven't watched it yet.
Oh, fair enough. Okay, you got to watch it. It's absolutely fantastic.
That sounds like dumplings.
Yeah, it's kind of like that.
Okay.
But really, really great, really, really bloody. Anyway, so this is a really terrific film. I can't believe it took this long to get on Blu-ray. Unfortunately, it's not the best version of it. It doesn't look all that great. I mean,
really?
It's the best version you can get. But
wow,
it's,
yes, but I have the Hong Kong Blu-ray. So is that true?
Oh, so I don't know compared to the Hong Kong Blu-ray. It is the best one with a American release that you can play on any Blu-ray player.
Well, see, that's the thing is
what I'm reading is that it is a far from perfect version. It's very schizophrenic about what looks great and what doesn't.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
And it's all I can say is if you haven't seen it, who gives a shit?
Yeah, exactly.
Watch it anyway. This is
definitely. Watch it on DVD. Just watch this fucking film.
It still looks good on Blu-ray. It's just, like I said, it has this problem. It could have been a better transfer.
Sure.
And it certainly could have had, a better, I don't know, it's such a great film. I'm embarrassed that all it has is the tiny little bit about of extras that it ported over from the previous DVD release. I mean, it's not much. There's an alternate ending. There's a behind the scenes look for like 6 minutes. There's a making of for 15 minutes. None of it is really that is going to set you on fire. I don't know. I would love to have seen a comparative, like, a talk with Martin Scorsese and the director of this, back and forth about, what was the different things they were thinking about.
Well, and the interesting thing is that you don't often see Martin Scorsese remaking Asian films.
Right.
Or remaking
films a lot in general.
Well, it was just that good of a movie. I mean,
it's fabulous.
It really
is.
Did,
and spawned two
sequels. Now,
Yeah.
I've only seen the second one, which people do compare to The Godfather 2, because it's kind of it's part a prequel, part not. And it does it in that same way Godfather 2 does, where it flashes back. And it's great. It's a fucking kick-ass movie. I've heard that 3 is not so good.
Kind of like Godfather 3.
Yeah. Well, you know what? If they hadn't gotten the Asian Sofia Coppola in it, it would have been much better, is all I can say. So,
son of a bitch.
No ticky, no laundry.
But yeah, I love this movie. Couldn't recommend it more.
Definitely.
One of my favorite films.
Very,
We're
very,
seeing,
very good.
Even if it doesn't look all that great. I know, right? We're going to skip some of these, but we are not going to skip 3 Amigos, because god damn it. It's fucking 3 Amigos on Blu-ray. And you know what? This is the first anamorphic version of this that's ever had a home release. The previous DVD was not anamorphic, and it's... which means, if you guys don't know, it's like if you have an HD screen and you have those old DVDs where it's just a block in the center of your screen with like 6 inches of black around it, that means it's not anamorphic.
They put out a lot of different releases in the wrong aspect ratio.
They totally did.
I would even say they put out a plethora of DVDs in the wrong aspect ratio. Really? Nothing, guys? Come on.
I was just...
Well, it should be noted that it's still the right aspect ratio. It's just annoying.
Yeah. Now
you couldn't laugh at my joke because I got the terminology wrong. God damn it! You're the worst Ed McMahon ever.
I think
I have to be that guy and say that I've never seen the 3 Amigos.
Oh no!
Now you get out.
Well, you have to fix this. Now the thing about this is that this is a film that didn't perform well in the theaters at first, even though it's pretty much Galaxy Quest just set as a Western.
It kind of is.
No, it totally is. It's like 3 kind of washed-up actors playing who used to play badass cowboys, are really famous, played by Steve Martin, Chevy Chase, and Martin Short, who get mistaken by a tiny little Mexican town, and very much a play off of the Magnificent Seven. I mean, the thing is a spoof of Magnificent Seven.
See, I got that, but you're blowing my mind with this Galaxy Quest thing.
That hire them to come fight an evil group of gunfighters who is, causing their town all kinds of shit. They believe it's just an acting opportunity.
Yeah.
The town believes they're really the cowboys.
Because they live in a place where they don't have a lot of access to things that would allow them to know the difference between fiction and reality.
Yeah. And in fact, the village in it is the exact same village that the Magnificent Seven was shot with.
Oh, nice.
Exact same village. So, kind of a neat little bonus thing to know.
And then, of course, the big draw to this movie is the fact that it has this cast, which is the comedy equivalent of, like, the 92 Dream Team.
Oh, yeah. No doubt. Steve Martin, Chevy Chase, and Martin Short work so great together in this.
And they're all in their prime.
It's funny because it's one of those scripts that have been floating around for a while, and a lot of big comedy name actors had been cast in the roles and then had to move on because the production just wasn't happening for whatever reason. It had been in the hands of a number of directors, but it finally ended up coming to John Landis, who at this point was still on a high note in his career.
I forgot this was directed by John Landis.
And you know what? they totally do it credit with this Blu-ray. It's not one of those half-assed things at all. It's a really great transfer of video and audio, which, goddamn, after being this long since they put out an anamorphic, really well-realized one. I mean, even the old one on a regular TV looked like shit. It was a terrible, terrible version. They have totally fixed this up like crazy, as well as it comes out with some halfway decent special features. 19 minutes of deleted scenes, most of which were originally intended to be included in the film, and the studio took it out of John Landis's hands and cut them without his permission. So we're talking the good kind of deleted scenes, and these are ones that are never been seen before this.
Nice.
Yes, in HD, no less. So, I mean, come on, man. This is a great little release of one of my, it's not one of my favorite comedy films, but it's one that I do keep coming back to.
Absolutely. Well said, my little buttercup.
Maybe not as much as Galaxy Quest, but,
By Grabthar's hammer.
By Grabthar's hammer. Let's talk about one that we all saw, and I think we can safely say across the board. Why don't you take this one, Brian? Because I know you were almost as enthusiastic as even more enthusiastic than I was when I first saw it.
Yes, we're going to talk about a little film called Tucker and Dale versus Evil.
Woohoo!
Which, if you... that's exactly the reaction everyone should have.
That, by the way.
It is a film that if you are a fan of not even just horror comedies, but horror tropes in general, if you watch a lot of horror movies, this is a movie that speaks directly to you and actually puts a clever spin on a lot of the things that you've seen before. It's a story about Tucker and Dale, two actually good-hearted redneck-type fellas that are going up to their summer home, which is a cabin in the woods.
Yeah.
And they're going to fix it up and do a little fishing. Well, along the way, they run afoul of these really douchey teenagers.
Sure.
And the teenagers get it in their head that these two guys are evil killer rednecks. And throughout the movie, a series of events unfold that lead these teenagers to further believe this, while the good-natured Tucker and Dale have no idea what's going on, and they don't understand why teenagers keep killing themselves all around them.
Well, that one of the funniest things I've ever seen in film is Alan Tudyk in tears trying to explain to Tucker how that guy just threw himself into the wood chipper.
Because it's true, that's what happened, but it's like, there's no way to describe the series of events that led to a kid accidentally falling into a wood chipper.
No.
And the whole time, and they actually do a funny thing on this Blu-ray where they recut the movie, they re-edit it so you just see it from the teenager's perspective.
Yeah, so it seems like a more standard horror movie.
So you can see exactly what they're seeing and why they think these two guys are killers, and it's so fucking funny.
Well, a lot of the success of this has to do with the two leads, played by
Alan Tudyk.
Yeah, Alan Tudyk and Tyler Labine. Tyler Labine, very underappreciated sort of newer comedy guy who I knew from the show Reaper, which I totally adored, but has appeared in a couple things since then.
He's also the hug it, shug it football guy
the
from
guy
Zack
that
and Mary.
stumbles in Zack and Mary, and Jason Sudeikis' friend in A Good Old Fashioned Orgy.
That's true. A very underappreciated comedy as well.
Indeed.
Really like that one.
Very, very decent. A very decent comedy.
Yeah,
It's very kind
and
of
Alan Tudyk, of course, was Wash in Firefly. So
absolutely, he was also
other
great in the original Death at a Funeral.
I'm not a fan of that film.
Really?
Yeah, I know
really
some
dig that
people
one.
like it. So,
But it's
I love that movie.
It's really trendy right now to whenever there's a horror comedy, compare it to Shaun of the Dead.
yeah.
But this film, I feel like, earns it, and not only earns it, but is on par with Shaun, and for a very specific reason, is you have two guys that are completely oblivious to the horror story going on around them. And in this case, they didn't do anything to deserve it, but they're being cast as the villains in this horror story.
Well,
and they're just like, what's happening right now?
Like in Shaun of the Dead, you've got two very lovable lead characters who have a lot of very affectations particular to them. They're very well defined.
Yes.
We're following through this story that is playing with the tropes of a very familiar horror genre. But outside of that, it really doesn't have anything in common with Shaun of the Dead. It doesn't even have the same feel, except that you'll probably laugh just as much. This is a really, truly great horror comedy.
It's fantastic.
And those don't come along that often.
And it really is such a simple idea, because the first 5 minutes of this film are just like the first 5 minutes of any slasher film you've ever seen.
It feels like a Wrong Turn sequel.
It's the teenagers, and they're in the truck, and they're going down the road, and they have to stop at the gas station to get beer, and they see the two creepy rednecks, and they're freaked out. And, that's how every horror movie starts, and you know that that's going to come back. and instead we turn and we follow the two rednecks.
Yeah.
It's such a great twist.
It's beautiful.
And it's surprising. Salisbury and I were talking. It's surprising that nobody's ever thought of doing that before.
That's the biggest shocker of this film, and that's what I kept telling myself. Well, the first time I saw this I can't remember if it was Fantastic Fest or South by. It was one
I think
of
it was
them.
South by.
I think it was South.
But I sat there going, are you sure nobody's already done this movie?
It's
It's
fabulous.
it's baffling that no one had thought of doing it.
And maybe somebody did, but maybe they fucked it up. But
Yeah.
the great thing is that they don't here, and it turns out very, very well.
It's a great script, great lead performances, and just an
It's a lot of
amazing
fun.
concept, a lot of fun. It's a great movie.
Yeah, I can't praise this more highly, and it will probably get on my best of the year list. I liked it better the second time when I watched it with you, Brian, because being more aware of what's actually happening, seeing early on the sequences more from the kid's point of view is so much funnier if you
Yeah.
understand those characters.
I felt the same way
already.
when my second viewing, I showed it to Luke. So it's like one of those things just getting passed down like the fucking Ring VHS tape. But
I can totally see watching this again sometime in the next month as well from friends going, hey,
Definitely.
we heard you've got Tyler. And yeah, okay, sure. Sit down. I'll make the popcorn and the whiskey and cokes. We'll get this started.
hell yeah, Tucker and Dale.
All right, let's do one more, and then we'll take a break and do the final part of this. But you know what? Let's talk about a movie that you were raving about to me, Brian, and I somehow missed along the way because it played Fantastic Fest. I didn't get to see it. But here, the American name of it is Kidnapped.
Ah, yes.
And it was a 2010 Spanish thriller film that it could not have more of a self-descriptive title.
It's a home invasion movie. That's
It
all.
is.
That's really all you need to know. It's a bunch of guys break into a house, and to my recollection, and you'll forgive me if I'm a little fuzzy on all. It's been a couple years, but they really are just after money.
Yeah.
There's no deeper. Like, they're not Satan worshippers. There's nothing in the house particularly that they're looking. They just want money.
It's in fact, I think I'm correct here. I believe it's it's like the movers or the maintenance.
No, you're right.
workers
You're right.
or
Yeah.
something like
Or
that.
at least one of them, anyway.
Yeah,
They were basically just casing the
nice
joint.
guy, yeah.
And there's not much, like... It's not a complicated tale. It's
No, it's very basic.
straightforward. It's very fly on the wall, watching these stories as they take the father out of the family to empty out ATMs with all of the various families' accounts, which means waiting for 15 minutes and then going back again repeatedly, whereas the mom and the daughter's friend are tied up inside the house and are having to deal with two very different mindset criminals who are playing the two remaining guys there, one of which is clearly a little on the edge, who's snorting coke every time he gets a chance and is very abusive, and the other just wants to get out of here without a murder one charge added to his ticket. And it's funny that, like, some people criticize this for the lack of complexity in the story, and if you just looked at the script, you'd probably go, whatever.
It is very basic.
But it's what the director does with it. It's the style of it and the vision he has for it, and just quite frankly, some of his camera tricks that he does that make this so incredibly gripping.
And mostly it's deeply, deeply disturbing, and in a way that's not like... I don't like to use the word disturbing here because it's not a torture porn movie.
Yeah.
No, not at all.
It's not a movie that uses extremity as a crutch. It's just...
It's very visceral.
Visceral is the perfect word for it. It is absolutely visceral, and you see things that you can't unsee, but they don't feel unmotivated.
Yeah.
They don't feel inorganic.
But it's very stark and bleak and unflinching, I think.
Yeah.
But frankly, Cyrus was saying with camera tricks, towards the end of the film, it does some absolutely stunning split screen sequences.
Oh my god, yeah.
So
that
good.
somehow merge together into the same shot.
I still haven't figured that one out.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it's one of those things.
I mean, it's like complex choreography, you know, just saying, all right, I need to be here at X time and all that, but it's incredibly done.
I would have hated to have been the editor on this.
Oh god.
Because it would have been so
I would have hated to be
exacting.
the DP on this movie.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to have this camera come in from 2 blocks away, and this one's still in the house, and eventually you're going to meet in this room.
No, it felt like a Tom Twyker trick, like something he would have done.
Sure, definitely,
you know?
like Run Lola Run.
Yeah, and it's very, very impressive. Also, the performance in particular of the young daughter in this.
Yeah.
There is a image of her in this film that will stick in your head for a long time afterwards as just... I mean, it's not like it's disturbing in a sense of like, oh my god, she's getting raped or something like that, like in that scene. It's just the performance of her is just, it's just startling. It wakes you up. And yeah, this is a great film for people who, it's not that it's gory, it's just, it really is shocking and brutal without gore.
This is the kind of movie that's going to make you want to invest in a handgun and a Brinks home security system.
Like, if you like watching the horror movies where people who may have come over to laugh and have fun shut the fuck up after 15 minutes and just
if you have those
movie,
friends that think that they're going to be funny and talk through the whole movie, show them this.
They will not.
Yeah, look at their twisted, agonized faces at the end as a badge of accomplishment.
All right, before we take a break, got some more giveaway stuff.
Giveaways!
I love you guys. All right, here's one of the things that I was excited about. I got sent this a while back, and I was like, oh my god, best present ever.
And if none of you wins this, I'm going to fucking take it. So you better pay attention to these comment sections.
This is the miniseries, or not miniseries, the television series, all of it. What is it? 5 seasons plus a bonus disc called Seven Wonders of the Solar System of the Universe. It's the Universe Mega Collection. And if you like really high-end documentary series about totally fucking awesome shit, this is about as good as it gets.
Absolutely.
I mean, oh my god, it's talking about the whole universe. All kinds of crazy shit. There's like time travel, there's black holes, there's kind of just stuff that you should know about, because sooner or later a meteorite is going to hit our planet, and either we're going to slip into a parallel timeline or we're all going to die. So
maybe both.
It's just that simple.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we've got this set. It is huge, and it's on Blu-ray, which means it looks gorgeous. I mean, it really does look gorgeous. The Universe. Keep your eyes out for that. The second runner-up on that, or the runner-up on that, will get the 3D edition of the Universe, Seven Wonders of the Solar System by itself, which will play in a standard Blu-ray player as well. It's just basically the extra disc added to the set. But once again, for 3D television sets, which I do admittedly kind of wish I had. I just don't. Hey, it's that shit in 3D. Who wouldn't want to see that? That's pretty awesome. One more thing before we go to the break. I'm saving the best thing for last, but I have the Mike Hammer, Mickey Splain's Mike Hammer set starring Darren McGavin, who I remember from Kolchak the Night Stalker, which was the sort of pre-X-Files.
And I always remember him as the dad from A Christmas Story.
Oh, that's right, he was that. But it's not, okay, so it's not as dark as like some of the Mike Hammer adaptations you might have seen in film, but it is darker than the Stacy Keach ones.
Yes.
And it's a damn good series. It's multiple discs, 78 episodes on 12 discs. It's damn entertaining, and I think this is something that anybody, especially if you just listened to our film noir episode and you got a taste for it, you're going to like this.
Hell yes.
So let's take a break, and we'll be right back with the final segment, the final summation.
Welcome to Channel 4 of Remote Viewing. Thanks for sticking around. We hope you enjoy the rest of the show.
It's kind of like the BBC in our own way.
We are kind of
channels.
Thanks for sticking around. Here's the rest of the show.
Indeed. And why don't we get right into it? Why don't you lead us off?
Oh, all right. Well, I'm going to actually throw something out that was a big surprise for me this last month. It was a movie I hadn't heard anything about. IFC put it out, a movie called Vampires, which is
the title is hardly thrilling.
Yeah, the title is like, really? I mean, you instantly conjure images of every trope that you've seen rehashed over the last few years about vampires. But what this is it's a mockumentary. It's a Belgian mockumentary about a camera crew following actual vampires, not Twilight vampires, not even like overly romanticized Anne Rice vampires, but like just real vampires that live and exist among us.
And this is French, right?
Belgian.
Is it Belgian?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Belgium.
It's in the French-speaking region of Belgium.
Oh, okay.
It takes place in Belgium. I know that.
But yeah, so it's Man Bites Dog, but with vampires.
Essentially, yes. And that's a much better comparison than the ones I keep hearing people calling it Spinal Tap with vampires, which is bullshit. Because it's so much more Man Bites Dog. It's very brutal and honest, and honest in the fact that this feels like an accurate portrayal of what a vampire family would be like. It does have comedic elements, but it's not silly. It's very dark. It is black comedy. For example, the daughter of the vampire family, the reason she's the rebellious teenager is that she wears pink and wants to be a human. And she keeps trying to kill herself throughout the movie so that she can somehow retrograde, go back to human. And it's like at one point, like the camera crew's following her, they don't really know what she's doing. She's like she's filling up a little thing of gas, and then she dumps it all over herself standing in the middle of a gas station, and she starts playing with the light, like, oh my god, and they like run as fast as they can to get away from her, and sure enough, you hear an explosion. But I mean, there's so many little touches about this movie. It's like illegal immigrants get delivered to their door as if someone's delivering groceries.
Weird. And
then they have like this coop outside where they keep them, and at one shot you see the coop, and there's like a 10-year-old girl out there. Like, it's not a light-hearted movie by any stretch of the imagination.
There's really dark parts to it, but most of them, how they play out, are in your imagination, it sounds
exactly. Like. And the reason that it is sort of comedic is because of the outsider view of this camera crew. These people, they're just like, what are we filming? And constantly throughout the movie, they're afraid they're going to get killed. Because there's a prologue that suggests that the last 2 camera crews that went out there were instantly killed, like the minute they met the vampires. Just like, oh, hi, how you doing? And then they just fed on them.
So why do these vampires want to be filmed?
That's a question.
They ever establish that at all?
They don't establish why. They do establish that it was the vampires initially that reached out to the filmmakers.
Okay.
From what happens to the first crew, I get the impression that it was because they wanted to eat them. But
they were hungry.
They were hungry.
Feeling peckish.
Yeah, just a mite peckish. But I mean, it's such a great and atmospheric faux. What do you call it? A mockumentary, I guess. But it really does feel like Man Bite Dog, and I didn't think about that until just now. But it has that same kind of brutal honesty to it, like you completely buy into the world that it's representing as real. But it's a really great movie that I could totally see playing a Fantastic Fest and being a crowd pleaser.
Huh, okay. Yeah, now you make me want to... I wish I had time to see it. Because, like I said, you look at the title, you look at the cover...
Oh, the cover's terrible.
You're just like, this is another bland piece of shit. You go, why did IFC put this out? Why the fuck... And then I hear your review, and I go, oh, that's why IFC put it out.
Absolutely.
It's actually good. And it's from Belgium.
Oh, and it is also streaming right now. It just got added to Netflix Instant, so definitely check it out.
There you go. All right, moving right along. Here's a movie that I probably would have skipped if you, Brian, hadn't said, oh my god, I saw an earlier version of this and it was great. You have to see this and let me know what you think. It's a German film called The Wave.
Ah, yes.
Now, this is actually based on a book which was inspired by a social experiment where a teacher got his students sort of taught them about fascism by getting them to play roles within how fascism is born.
It's kind of similar to that classic psychological experiment where the school teacher does like the blue eye and brown eye experiment, which is like, everybody with blue eyes goes over here, and the people with blue eyes are told that they're better, and then they start like bullying the people with... It's that same kind of experiment, except that they're told you're in this group called the Wave, and the Wave is the superior...
But what's interesting in this film adaptation is that they're not told that at all.
Oh, really?
They come to that conclusion entirely on their own.
Oh, nice.
And it gets a lot more into how fascism develops, because it starts with this teacher who was used to teaching an anarchy class. Really, they have anarchy classes in Germany? Apparently they do. and he gets fucked out of what he usually teaches that class, a subject he has great interest in because he's clearly an old punk rocker, and has to teach the autocracy class, which deals with dictatorships and fascism. So he gets brought in there, and the disinterested and bored and slacker class goes, whatever, Hitler, we're so tired of hearing about it. There's no way a dictatorship could ever happen in Germany again, or fascism, because we're all so hyper aware. And the teacher goes, oh, really, you smart little shits? This could never happen? Of these students who clearly don't understand how these type of things, how they happen, how they don't just happen.
Yeah.
Hey, let's be fascists.
Yeah. It's not something they just switch on and decide, we're going to be fascists today. Ciao.
They evolve.
They're Italian, apparently, too. I don't know.
He starts the kids off with little things here and there, just saying, okay, we're going to divide it. We're going to, talk about these subjects. We're going to say what's terrible about the system the way it is. We're going to say, okay, you know what? We're all going to start wearing a uniform, so there's no social differences here. And everyone's aware that it's an experiment. And yet, as time goes on, all these kids start getting super into it. In particular, one kid who right from the beginning is clear is mentally disturbed and likes this way too much.
Yeah.
That's not going to play out.
This all sounds very familiar to me.
And it is. And it's not like there's much that's going to be surprising to you in the plot and the way that things play out here, but it's still really interesting, and you can't help but wonder. I'm curious what would happen in real life if this played out in exactly this way, with the way the particulars of the way that the teacher is involving his class and stuff. The only problem I had with this film is it doesn't really have much teeth. It's like they want people to show it to their high school classes anyway.
Yeah, see, and that's how I saw it. was in my high school class. It was like an after-school special that they showed us.
Yeah, right, a previous version, adaptation of the
Yeah, it was
story.
not this particular one.
But even this film feels like they're still being so cautious to not, like, go too overboard with anything so that they can make sure you can show this to your class, which I guess is a worthwhile thing. And so it doesn't really have a lot of teeth, per se, where it feels like a better film would have gone a little farther with its darkness. The other thing is, I had a hard time believing that this teacher wasn't aware that things were spiraling out of control.
Yeah.
Like, it's supposed to say that the teacher was getting as wrapped up in being a dictator to some degree, unconsciously, as the students were into being his subjects, but that part didn't really sell to me on the whole. I had a hard time believing that, like, he couldn't tell by the fact that they were spray painted symbols over every inch of the town for this symbol of the wave. That's the name of their group, and that they were all, even outside of class, were wearing the uniform, including students who weren't even in the class. I mean, come on.
Clearly something has gone awry.
Something has gone a little off the tracks there, but it's a solid film. It's worth seeing, and honestly, I think if I was a teacher who was teaching about a class about politics, this would be a great film to show your students, because they nail all the elements that lead to fascism in a way that you go, wow, that's eerie, and that it's just that simple how people can get that incredibly diluted.
Indeed.
For God's sake, especially high school students.
Yeah, no shit.
Moving on, let's talk about a film I know both of you guys are excited to talk about, which really couldn't thrill me more, because I don't think the other guys from Spill really liked this movie as much as I did, and I adored it. We're talking about Another Earth. And you guys just saw this, so why don't you take off on this one?
I mean, Another Earth is basically it's one of those quieter, more introspective sci-fi films that we've been getting kind of an abundance of lately. It's about a woman who basically, she's been accepted to MIT. I think she's 17 or 18 at the time. Things are really looking up for her, and then driving home from a party, she gets into a car accident and kills, unfortunately, a young woman and her child, and the husband survives but is in a coma. And she's been drinking, so she goes to jail for involuntary manslaughter, but because she's a minor, the details of her name and things like that aren't released.
So the husband has no way of knowing who it is.
Well, yes, and he doesn't...
Aside from the fact that he's in a coma.
Yeah, he doesn't...
aside from that.
Yeah, aside from that.
He's doing
nobody
investigation.
but still, nobody incepts the name of the assailant. But yeah, basically, as soon as she gets out of prison, he comes out of his coma, and she's kind of... Her life is now spun completely off the rails. And underscoring all of this is the discovery that, much closer to us than anyone would have suspected, there is another planet capable of sustaining life. Essentially, oh my god, the title, Another Earth.
Brian!
How titular of you.
I know. So there's now a contest going on where...
he said dead.
I did, yeah.
He said dead.
There's now a contest going on where they're gonna be selling tickets on a space shuttle to go to this other Earth. And then there's going to be one ticket that's given away as a contest where you can write in and give your reasons for why you want to go. So she really wants to go to another Earth to get away from all of the shit that her life has become.
It really is a literal metaphor for a fresh start.
Yeah, you can't get much a much more clear identifier of a fresh start than going to a planet exactly like yours that you've never been to before.
Yeah. Leaving everything behind.
And in fact, that's a key weird thing here. Like you said, it's a very obvious metaphor, but an effective one is that it's not just another planet capable of sustaining life. It's Earth 2.0. I mean, up until the point where both Earths became visible on each other's telescopes, their progression through history was identical. Mm-hmm. And that moment in which it was sighted was the exact moment that the lead character, played by Britt Marling, Rhoda, causes the accident that kills the family of the husband, played by William Mapother.
Ethan from Lost, I think we can
Ethan
agree
from Lost,
on.
Sure enough. And a lot of the film relies on the fact of speculation about whether or not his family is alive in that other Earth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what's great about it is there's a lot that you, just from context clues, get a sense of what's going on that other Earth. But they really leave it to you to connect the dots as the events on this Earth are unfolding. And there's a lot of it that's just really startling and eerie, like when they make contact with the other Earth. It's really, really bizarre. And the relationship
Creepy.
the relationship that she starts to build with the father of the family that she killed accidentally, as he has no idea who she is.
She presents herself as a
maid.
Maid for hire.
Yeah.
I think it's important to note that that's not in any way malicious on her part. She goes to his house
to
initially
apologize.
with the intention of explaining who she is and apologizing,
And
just loses her nerve when he comes to the door,
Yeah.
and kind of falls into, the act of cleaning his house, which obviously has its own metaphors. What I think is great is that there's so much subtext in this film, and I feel like in so many other indies, the prevailing impetus is to explain too much.
Yeah.
And I think part of what this film does so well is put things out there and let you connect the dots. And it in that way, it doesn't pander to the audience. It it respects the audience and assumes that you're smart enough to put the story together.
Sure.
And I really appreciate that. And it's impressive even more so because I believe this is a first time director. And it's a poise that you would normally see from someone a little more seasoned. Mike Cahill is the director of this particular film.
It's not his first, but I think it's his first fiction film, his first narrative feature. He's done some documentaries.
That's still fucking impressive.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
totally
it's-
different type of film. And in fact, it was co-written by the main star, Britt Starling, or Britt, what's her face? What's her face?
Britt Marling.
Britt Marling, yeah.
Britt
sorry.
Marling.
We're
who
saying
is-
star
Britt
because we're dealing
Starling,
with another Earth.
I'm thinking of Clarice Starling.
And it's really, really interesting because this film played at South by Southwest this past year alongside another Britt Marling film called The Sound of My Voice, which is I guess I won't say better, but equally interesting and does a lot of the same things, kind of letting the audience experience the story and put the story together on their own.
I love sci-fi movies that are focused on making the science fiction a human endeavor, and not crowding the scene with spectacle. Like, not crowding, it's about traveling to another planet, but we don't see spaceships flying through the air, we don't see aliens. It's about what sci-fi is, which is like connecting us to larger concepts beyond ourselves.
It's funny because the science fiction aspects of this are really more of a detail to the main story, which is about, as we said, this woman acting as the maid to an unwitting guy whose family was killed by her, as she's seeking for a way to apologize to him, not realizing that the very act of what she's doing, giving him human contact and a friend, is an apology itself. That's what he's doing. She's fixing him without knowing
they're
that she's
fixing
doing
each
it.
other, really, which I think is the great part of the film, that they're both broken and they both need a way to become whole again.
It's not anywhere near as sappy as that might sound.
And in fact, there's a great little scene.
Not at all, and it's because they don't spell too much out.
Yeah.
Well, there's a great little scene in the movie where they've started to not really become friends, but they're friendly, cordial. And he invites her to play. This sounds so stupid, but bear with me here. He invites her to play Wii with him, and it's Wii boxing. And it's like, you think it's a nothing little scene, but then as you watch their physicalities during that fight,
she cowers.
She cowers the whole time. Well, he's just his little avatar's wailing on her, and you realize that that's what she expected emotionally when she got there.
Yeah,
was for him to just pummel her.
Yeah, it's the physical manifestation of their different stages of grief.
Yeah.
He is still in the angry stage because he's just woken up from the coma and he's just starting to deal with it, whereas she's had 4 years to deal with it, and she knows what to expect, and so she's cowering away from this.
Yeah, to him, his family just died.
Yeah.
Yeah, as far as he knows.
Yeah.
Great performances all around. Really, it's muddy but beautiful cinematography. I mean, it's intentionally muddy looking, but it's haunting. The film doesn't... It knows when it's time to give you chances to think about what you've just heard and seen, and it's really smart about not overplaying their hand with that sort of thing. And what a great little art house Twilight Zone twisty of an ending.
Love it.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, the end
ending.
is startling and incredible. And just a quick note on something that I really liked. The big shot or the big sci-fi element is that Britt Marling's character will be walking along the road or walking out by where the accident happened, and you will see the other Earth in the sky behind her, And something cool that they did with the color palette, which also works into the fact that it's kind of a bleak and depressing film, is that they pushed everything towards the blues. The blues are really highly saturated, the blue in the ocean of the other Earth that you see in the sky. Even the cover of the box is all blue. It's just a very blue fucking movie.
It is indeed, in many ways, in both the emotional and the just visual
Indeed,
sense.
it's one of those things where the color palette really plays.
I'm honestly
the
considering
film.
adding this to my list of best films of the year. I was so taken by this movie.
Yeah, adored it. Totally bought into its context and the emotional content, and yeah, I thought this was great. I look forward to anything else especially by the star who, like I said, co-wrote this as well, Britt Marling, but Mike Cahill directed it as well. Yeah,
I think they both did fabulous jobs, and I know Fox Searchlight bought The Sound of My Voice as well, which is the other Britt Marling film. So if you see that, I'm sincerely hoping that they give it a release soon. But if you enjoyed Another Earth, be on the lookout for that film as well.
Well, let's talk about one I know y'all are more excited to talk about than I am. I actually even handed this off to Leon because I was so unimpressed with the film. And to be fair, even though critically it was largely treated with acclaim, among audiences it was kind of split. I knew just as many people who really didn't like Super 8 as who really, really did. And I'm afraid I fell into the not really didn't like, but kind of didn't like crowd. You know, it's like I didn't hate it or anything. There were parts I genuinely liked, but I thought it was really disappointing, and I thought its ending sucked ass. and I thought that it cribbed so heavily from Spielberg's career that it was almost kind of embarrassing watching Abrams hop up and down like, "Hey, sir, what can I do for you? How can I help? What can I do? Can I show something from your movie? That's great. I'm so glad you're helping me with my movie, Super 8. I mean, it's just what it felt like watching to me, and yet, for a film that cribbed so heavily from Spielberg, I never felt like it captured any of Spielberg's magic. But I know that you two thoroughly disagree with me. So
it's funny, like all of the points you're hitting and saying that you either didn't like or didn't feel like were there. It's the exact opposite for me.
Yeah,
I felt like this was a perfect, loving tribute, not just to Spielberg, but about how film is kind of I don't want to say hereditary because they're not related, but how it's something that generationally, there's a generational influence every new crop of filmmakers. And this is a film about someone who learned to be a filmmaker by being inspired by a director who himself, it's almost like Inception, like it's just going to keep going.
Well, it's funny, we were talking today that, and I don't want to spoil Hugo because there's a part of Hugo that I feel is a great reveal, but in the same way that Hugo is Scorsese paying tribute to filmmakers that inspired him.
The birth of cinema.
Yeah. Sure. This is, in a lot of ways, Brian and I feel like Super 8 is Abrams doing the same thing with, particularly Spielberg, obviously. I mean, my God, it has the Amblin Entertainment logo at the beginning.
But Landis and Dante and people like that as well.
And what moved me so much about this movie is the fact that I love a big blockbuster feeling movie, whether it is or isn't backed by a giant studio. I love movies that have a blockbuster aesthetic but still maintain this incredible level of heart, and I feel like that's exactly what Super 8 did. It's the same reason I love Attack the Block so much, is I feel like that even though that movie didn't have Super 8's money, it feels like a blockbuster, and yet it retains a lot of the things that connect us to movies that we love in general, and I got that exact same experience watching Super 8, and I love the characters, I love the story. I mean, I'm just completely enraptured by everything about this movie, and I haven't really felt that way since I was a kid and watching Spielberg. So yeah, obviously it's almost to the point where he's just taking what Spielberg did and doing it again, but I feel like he got it right, and I feel like he created that same effect that we have watching Spielberg.
And I feel like nobody's really been able to capture that, and it's obviously you don't feel like he captured Spielberg's magic, but I feel like he did, and I feel like nobody's been able to do that since. Shit, at this point, I'm not even sure Spielberg can anymore.
I think he tried harder to capture it than anybody has. I mean, there's no question he was trying pretty fucking hard to do it, and there are moments that he does. It's just there were plenty more that he didn't. I kind of just wanted to see the film the kids were making in this film, the actual Super 8 movie that they were filming that surrounds the rest of how the plot gets started off as they accidentally end up filming the escape of an alien off a military transport, a dangerous alien at that, if not a sort of picky to a unrealistic level about who he's going to kill, Alien.
Yeah, I mean,
I had to suspend my disbelief long enough that my arms were hurting. Let's just put it that way.
Well, I like the fact that it does have like very visual homages to Spielberg, but then there's some thematic ones that I think really work well, like the idea of taking the alienation that a kid feels from his one remaining parent and translating that as an actual fucking alien. Because that's E.T. That's what E.T.'s about. E.T. is about the cold distance that a child feels after a divorce, represented as an actual being from another planet.
And that was an aspect that I think worked. I think that was a good decision. I think part of the problem was really a lot of the script didn't keep enough interesting stuff, and certainly not enough good punch-up to keep me fascinated. Like, Spielberg was always great at having his characters have funny dialogue and lots of little amusing sidebars to keep you going, and all that stuff in here, with the exception of what was going on when, like I said, when their kids were making their film, just bored me. I was like, come on, can we just get back to the alien destroying shit, please?
See, I felt like, I think that a good portion, at least, of the comic relief in this film is Ryan Lee's character, who, incidentally, is a local Austin kid.
Yep.
But this little blonde-haired kid with braces that is the pyromaniac of the group.
Oh, the kid.
Would
from
you
Friday
stop
Night
blowing
Lights.
things up for 5 seconds so I can get the shot?
Yeah, no, I agree with you there.
Yeah, and I think he does. I think he does a great job. Part of what is great about this and Attack the Block, like Brian was saying, is the child actors. The kid actors in both of those films, I think, are fabulous. I think the entire cast of child actors in Super 8 is really impressive, and I think that's also kind of going back to Spielberg, because something that Spielberg always did really well was direct children.
Yep.
That's such a difficult thing to do, and whether or not that credit should be given to Abrams for directing or to the children for just being naturally good, I can't really say one way or the other, but I think the performances that come through on screen are very, very good from the children, particularly the lead kid.
Yeah,
I think he's just adorable, and he's very good at emoting with his face, which is actually something that John Boyega in Attack the Block is equally good at, and it's a difficult thing to pull off as an adult. I can't even imagine as a child. But I think he really pulls, at least for me, he pulled me into the story and made me, interested in what was going to happen to him.
I liked him. I liked as well Ellie Fanning, who has proven to be quite a capable actress on her own.
Fabulous.
She's terrific in here. I thought she was the strongest draw here.
She's great.
Do
she
you know
really
Dakota is actually in a scene in this movie? Briefly.
Really?
Yeah, she's in a town hall.
Yeah, she plays the
sequence.
thing that comes bursting out of the train car.
Oh, right. Well, it's funny because I Elle or Ellie, I think she's a far better actress than
Ellie, not sure.
I have no idea.
Elle, you never
Ellie-in.
tell.
I think she's a far
Elliot.
better actress,
Elliot.
particularly in this, than Dakota Fanning.
Yeah. Well, I think Dakota Fanning's, you can't disparage her acting.
I just did.
She's great. She's had a great career. Come on, man. She was a great actress.
Yeah, man, Hound Dog was some shit.
Oh, come on. Elle or Ellie's just getting started.
No,
Give her
she is,
time.
but I thought she was
Give her time.
fabulous in
She'll
this.
make some shitty fucking films.
I'm sure she will. I just hope she doesn't get raped in the process.
Oh, see? That's not cool.
I love that we wait till we get to the movie cast largely with children before we make a rape joke.
Was that our first rape joke?
I think it was.
Oh,
I'm
God.
fairly
I'm
certain
glad
we
I
went
was
this
the
whole
one to
show
make it.
without making a rape joke until we got to the movie with a bunch of fucking kids.
Apparently Channel 4 is rated MA.
Yeah, Channel 4 is the one that your parents make you turn off and go to bed.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on. You know what? Here's a film that you had to loan to me, even though apparently they're still sending it to me. We'll wait and see. Called Horror Express.
Oh, yes.
Which was a 1972 Spanish horror film, which in the 70s wasn't necessarily a good thing by any stretch of the imagination.
No, it was not.
Unless you like professional wrestling a lot. Spanish professional
Yeah, there are no
wrestling.
luchadors in this film.
Yeah, there are not. But the director, Eugenio Martin, really was a big fan of Hammer horror.
Did we do the thing again where we didn't say the title?
I said Horror Express.
Oh, you did. Okay, I'm sorry. That's my bad.
And he... Damn you, Brian! Now you
That
threw me
Nico
off my
Villa.
I'm sorry,
game.
did I derail your train of thought?
Oh,
For
look at
Horror
you.
Express? Oh, God, I hate
might
myself.
need to pass the torch on this Punisher thing.
I have learned well.
Dear God.
Go into retirement for a couple years, people were like, I always preferred the original Punisher. Anyway, so they pulled out Christopher Lee Peter Cushing from near retirement at that point from horror.
Yeah.
Those two, I mean, come on, they had been friends for decades, having played opposite each other in innumerable films.
Yeah, it's Dracula and Van Helsing getting together in this film.
Yeah, and here they're on the same side, which is unique in and of itself. In fact, a neat thing about this was that, it's not neat, it's sad, but when Peter Cushing arrived in Madrid, his wife had just died recently, and he was gonna pull out of the film because he was so just torn apart. I mean, this is like not, a recent wife. This is my whole lifetime wife. Like, we've been married for 40 years.
Yeah.
And the director was freaking out because he spent a lot of money and time to get these two together on his film, and Christopher Lee stepped in and pulled Cushing aside and said, "Don't worry, we'll blow up Alderaan. It'll be fine."
Oh, God. I recognized the foul stench of that joke when I was brought on board.
They sat down and reminded him of all the great times they've had working together and how, come on, this is going to cheer you up doing this again. And one of the notable things that everyone talks about when reviewing this film is how that friendship is much more evident in this movie than almost anything else they ever did together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is important in and of itself.
You can almost see their entire history together as you watch them on screen, which is weird.
It is weird.
Because this is, I mean, by all rights, this is, kind of a B movie, but watching...
kind of.
Well, it's better than what I typically classify a B movie, but now watching those two together on screen is actually kind of moving.
The story here is, as such as it is, because there's really not much to it, is that Christopher Lee is an English anthropologist who's returning to Europe by the Trans-Siberian Express, which is kind of a shithole as trains go, apparently. Yep. And there's a bunch of Russians, and he's on that all the time.
Yeah. How do you think I get to work every day? From the bedroom to the living room.
Who knew that Brian was such an expert on the Trans-Siberian Express?
That's that group that does the Carol of the Bells song.
You're right, it is. Totally.
Yeah, right? Yeah. And then the time
I thought that was Mannheim Steamroller.
God damn it, what's happening right now?
Apologies, sir.
So he's bringing this mysterious thing that we've seen as a frozen corpse in a giant crate back to Europe, and everyone's kind of like, well, what's in the box? Including a old colleague who, just by coincidence, happens to be on the same train, played by Peter Cushing, who is just as curious when something does indeed break out of the box, which is the thing itself, and kills a porter on the train by making his eyes bleed out to white and draining his brain of memories.
Yeah, which
by the way, they can tell because now it looks like a Nerf football instead of a curvy brain-like thing. Don't you see? All the memories, they are stored in the wrinkles, which is why there's no wrinkles.
Yeah, it's
science!
It's a little loose on the science
Until Telly Savalas comes in.
Until Telly Savalas comes in. Well, we'll get to Savalas. It turns into a manhunt, or a monster hunt as it is pretty early on they capture and shoot and kill the creature, only to discover that the creature can transfer his consciousness into other people by staring at them.
He pulls out the Vulcan mind meld.
Stop looking at me, Luke!
Yeah, this beast is capable of the Vulcan mind meld. It's pretty impressive.
And so it turns into a Who's Got It. In fact, this was influenced by the story that influenced The Thing. It was openly called one of the things this was written around. The Who Goes There?
Who Goes There? Yeah, I missed that about this one.
And you're not gonna please don't take that as like go see this and go, wow, I was looking for something that was kind of like The Thing, because it totally is not. But yeah, it is what it is.
It's like The Thing in that it was also made by human beings.
Exactly, and there is indeed some people bleeding.
Yep. Same film.
Yeah, I don't know. I started enjoying this a lot more once it started hopping around bodies. There's a crazy priest in here who
looks like Rasputin a little bit.
I think that's very intentional. Yeah. I mean, it's a Russian monk. What are you going to do? You know?
You're going to shoot him, stab him, cut his head off, and hang him, I think.
Yeah, who's hysterical because he's so over the top, and it's only in horror movies that a wide-eyed, crazy religious person is ever absolutely right with their rantings.
Yeah.
You know,
because that's a horrifying world that we don't want to live in.
But when they bring in Telly Savalas in the last half hour of this film as this insane scenery devouring Cossack who's like there
awesome.
For no reason except to up the body count.
Who loves you, comrades?
And he can't do an accent at all, but God help him, he's trying. He's trying.
He does accents as well as you do, actually.
No, I am better than him.
Yes.
No, I am, Luke. Don't look at me askance. Or are you trying to get inside my soul? I don't know.
Stop trying to take the wrinkles out of his brain.
I need those wrinkles. I was saving them for later. I don't know, Brian. What'd you think? I kind of,
I had a lot of fun with this movie. To me, it felt like if Spain tried to make a Hammer film.
Well, that's exactly what it is. So,
and not just because Cushing and Lee are in it, but like the visual landscape of this film, it really does feel like you're watching God, what is that? Frankenstein Was a Man, or the Satanic Rites of Dracula, or like one of the classics. And yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed this movie quite a bit. It was actually a lot better than I thought it was going to be. It's silly as all hell, but there's a lot of atmosphere, and I liked the thing about the monster changing his consciousness from one person to another, and I don't know, I had a lot of fun with it, and I think it's definitely worth watching. And if you're going to watch it anyway, you should watch it on the Blu-ray, because it's the best this film has any... It's better than this film has any right to look, really.
It does actually look pretty darn good, all things considered, although there's a point early on I was a little taken aback at how crappy it looked.
Yeah.
But I've noticed that a lot of classic films, when they redub them or redo them for Blu-ray, they don't bother much with the title sequences. I don't know what that's all about. I've noticed it really in Westerns. Holy shit. They'll be like, fuck the title sequence. Like, what the hell? It's like fucking sweeping vistas, and you're like,
well, yeah, and you go to all the trouble to do the rest of the movie. Why would you not do the title sequence?
I don't understand that at all. I thought this was silly to the point where you don't really want... There's no reason to watch this by yourself. This is a movie, one of those horror movies, unlike Kidnapped, that we talked about earlier, that you invite your friends over to have a few beers and watch and laugh at. I mean, the science is... science is usually bad in horror movies, but this is maybe the low point for science and horror film. Even Ed Wood has better science than this film. I mean, I don't even know how to describe it to you. It's so constant how many terrible, terrible things they do. Oh, and there is an anti-evolution thread to this too.
Yeah, there sure is.
Which is so silly. I wasn't even offended by it as a skeptic. I just laughed. It's so ham-handed the way they try and edge it into the plot. But you know what? This is a really decent collection. There's an introduction by the editor of Fangoria, Chris Alexander, who really accurately describes not only why this is not... It's not that this is a great horror film, but here's why I, as a horror fan, love it. And he sells you on it. He's like, okay, now I really want to see this film. New interviews with the director, lots of stuff, notes about the McCarthy era, which apparently has something to do with what was going on here.
Well, yeah, I mean, the whole, who's got it, who, it's one of those, we don't know who's an enemy and who's not kind of thing. I mean, that's McCarthyism right there.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, yeah, there's that. Moving on, why don't you take this next one, since you actually, although I've seen this, you are the one who saw the more recent version of this.
Yes. I'm
incredibly jealous of you for.
Yes, this is actually one of my favorite movies, and this is one of the few movies that, at 12, 13, even though this didn't have monsters or aliens or ninjas in it, I recognize as being one of my favorite movies.
Oh, wait, I was thinking of something else. Sorry. There's definitely ninjas and aliens in the one I'm thinking of.
Well, let's cross that one off the list and go to 12 Angry Men.
Fair enough.
12 Angry Men, which is an early film by Sidney Lumet, is a courtroom drama that basically is a talking heads movie. It's about this group of jurors who are right at the end of a murder trial and are sent to the back room to deliberate and come up with a verdict.
So one of them is a psycho killer, qu'est-ce que c'est?
No. Oh, very nice. Sorry. I get it.
I brought us back around to that.
You did. No, I like that. But yeah, basically what's happening is they're all convinced this guy is guilty, but really what they're convinced of is that they all want to get the fuck out of there and go home. So they're all ready to declare this kid guilty. To be fair, the evidence is kind of stacked up against him, but there's one juror who just doesn't want to just vote and go home. He wants to actually sit and examine because he's not entirely convinced. And that juror is played by Henry Fonda. But this is just a great movie, and you don't see this too often, where there's suspense in this film that is built entirely by conversation.
Yeah.
And by different personalities. I mean,
I love that in this film, everyone is so exasperated with Henry Fonda, whereas he's only called juror number 8. I think all but 2 characters are only ever referred to by the jurors are only referred to by their juror numbers.
Right.
They're like, oh, Jesus Christ, man, this is a fucking open and shut case.
Yeah.
I got shit to do.
Yeah.
Which is understandable if you've ever done jury duty.
The very smart thing they do, and this very subtle thing, is that this trial is going on in the middle of summer, and everybody is fucking roasting in this back room.
I like that the way they did the cameras, they start off the film with very wide open shots, but as it goes along, he was particularly choosing to frame his shots so they were more and more and more claustrophobic.
Yeah, they just keep pulling in and pulling in.
Yeah, exactly.
I absolutely love this movie. I think it's a great study in resisting conformity and how that can have very practical and very important real-world applications.
I would say even above and beyond that, for me anyway, this is an important American film because it is about what's important about this process. It gives you a real respect for the process of the legal system. It's like, look, it's like Henry Fonda's that guy going, I know this is exhausting and it sucks, but we're talking about this guy's fate and you just want to write him off.
Like if they find him guilty, it is mandatory that he goes to the chair.
Yeah.
There is no life sentence for this kid. If they find him guilty, he's dead.
Yeah.
They literally have his life in their hands.
What's so crazy about that is that is all explained to us by the most bored-looking judge in the history of the universe. The judge who reads out, like, all of the instructions for the jury, and the fact that there will be no other sentence but death, is so apathetic looking.
I mean, imagine you're this
he's
kid.
so lazy. He's like the bank teller that's like pissed that you're writing a check for. It's ridiculous how apathetic this guy looks.
Imagine you're this kid and this judge is basically telling these 12 guys who are going to decide your fate completely dispassionately, yeah, if you find him guilty, he's going to the chair, so let's go ahead and do this and we can all go home. It's like, seriously? Like, my life is on the line here, asshole.
And this was based, of course, on a stage play, I believe, originally, which was in and of itself, or no, actually, I'm sorry, it was a teleplay first. It was a TV movie first.
Yeah, and then it was remade 3 years later.
Henry Fonda was the one who brought Sidney Lumet in to do this film. But, yeah, I don't know, it still stands as a classic when, by all means, like, just looking at the outside, just the base description, you're like, whatever, that could be.
But it's so gripping.
It really
is
gripping. So many great performances. There's such a terrific cast of people.
Yeah, and a very young Jack Klugman is sensational.
Who is the only surviving juror still alive.
Oh, I think
actor
you're right.
Who's still alive is him. Martin Balsam is in this. Lee J. Cobb, E.G. Marshall.
Jack Warden, very young
Warden.
Jack Warden, who's unrecognizable by his face, but as soon as he opens his mouth, you're like, wait, I know this voice.
And the mysterious Ed Begley
Senior.
Yes,
Ed Begley 1.0.
Exactly. It's funny. And in fact, he plays juror number 10, who, it's kind of funny while rewatching this film how, like, there's this big famous scene in there where he just finally breaks and goes off on this huge rant about halfway through the film about being just a huge racist, basically, talking shit. And they go, shut the fuck up, pretty much. And he never utters another word for the entire rest of the film. He doesn't say a single word. Even when it comes to the final verdict where they're all doing it, he does a head motion to indicate his vote. It's kind of funny.
Here's a fun fact that no one will care
fuck
about.
Ed Begley Sr.
Yeah, fuck that guy. Fun fact no one will care about. Juror number 2, John Fiedler, is best known as the voice of Piglet from Winnie the Pooh.
Oh, check that out.
Who also shows up in Cannonball Run.
Yeah. It was really weird.
Thanks for noticing.
Thanks for noticing. or I can't do Piglet, so we'll do Eeyore instead.
Yeah, it works for me. I can't even remember what Piglet sounds like anymore, to be fair.
He sounds like this. He's a very diminutive voice, which is funny because that juror is the one that keeps getting pushed around.
Right. So why is this important? Well, because it's the Criterion Blu-ray edition, which in and of itself is a means of celebration. If you're depressed, if you're sitting around and going, my life has no meaning, there's really no reason to keep going, why don't you just look at all the shit Criterion puts out on Blu-ray every month and go, holy crap, I want to live! I want to live!
Wait a minute. You didn't even fucking see this movie! Come on!
Well, I have seen this movie.
No, not 12 Angry Men. I mean, It's a Wonderful Life that you're borrowing to create this.
Oh, is that from It's a Wonderful Life? I meant literally.
You basically just came this close to running up and down the street screaming, Merry Christmas, Criterion!
Well, that was what I was going to do next.
Well, let's do it! Let's go do that!
I didn't know that was part of that.
You accidentally quoted the plot from It's a Wonderful Life.
That film is nefarious.
Infamous.
I haven't even seen it, and it's insinuated itself in my
in
frontal
your
lobe.
brain.
It is. All right, so yes, this Criterion, which means it looks and sounds absolutely spectacular. How can it not? There's very few films that they have not nailed it as hard as anybody possibly could. It comes with a decent collection of extras. It's got a video interview with a film scholar who talks about how it moved from television to being a feature film. It's got a bunch of interviews with the director.
Oh, this was his first film, by the way. This was his first feature film.
Okay, well, I did not realize that.
Which is impressive in its own right. He was like 33 or
32,
something.
33, yeah.
He had been doing other things, so he wasn't, I don't know, it's not
He was doing a lot of TV.
It's not like Louis Malle being like 23 years old and directing Elevator to the Gallows, which that son of a bitch.
Also a Criterion release.
Yeah, but still very, very impressive for a debut feature film.
Indeed.
But there's interviews with the cinematographer. There's a look at the history of the writer about it and how he was important in history. And then there's actually the original television version, which
is a cool feature to have.
Lately, Criterion's been doing that sort of thing more and more that you don't expect. You'd be like, oh my god, they've got this whole other thing in here. So wouldn't that be great if, like, for instance, like we were talking about 13 earlier. If Criterion had made it, it would have included the French
I can't wait to
version.
see the Criterion release of the 13 Zemetti remake. 50 Cent painted on the cover.
All right, so one more, and then we'll go to our final big giveaway. Giveaway! But we're not there yet, so
I'm sorry.
Save that shit.
Giveaway.
All right, and this is actually for one of the giveaways we talked about earlier. We're going to talk about 5 Days of War, which is a serious film by Rennie Harlan.
From the director of Deep Blue Sea.
And Cliffhanger.
And Die Hard 2.
Die Hard 2. I'm sorry, but one of my favorite so retarded, there's no way you can do anything but like laugh. Is moments in any action film is when John McClane survives the plane blowing up by pressing the ejection seat?
Yeah.
And then John has him flying up out of the exploding airplane in the seat. I'm like, wait, what the fuck just happened?
You got Harlan.
Hey, Die Hard 2 just happened.
It did. Oh, man.
Director of Exorcist, the beginning.
He also directed Cutthroat Island, which is one of my wife's favorite bad movies. So
he has directed some decent stuff, although it had a lot more to do with who was writing it, like The Long Kiss Goodnight.
Shane.
Yes,
Black.
if Shane Black wrote it, you can't really direct it poorly.
It's hard to fuck it up completely. You can even cast Gina Davis as an action star, and there's only so much that will do to fuck it up. But
because you were screwing her at the time.
Yeah, well, and still is, I think, isn't he? Aren't they still married?
Oh, I thought didn't that say they were divorced?
I don't know if they're still together or not.
Shenanigans.
Otherwise,
they're probably still screwing them.
I don't know if they are or not.
Germane to this film, nonetheless.
She would have been in 5 Days of War otherwise. Certainly was in a lot of his others, but this covers a recent battle, the Russo-Georgian War, which apparently there was a lot of misinformation about who started it and what was going on. Like the news was covering it as almost a 9/11 sort of event for Georgia, where Georgia had attacked, like, without provocation, Russia. Now, this film takes a very different tact on it, which says that Russia was determined to reclaim this territory and had set up that whole situation as an excuse to just invade Georgia, period.
Huh.
And this follows
that's really offensive to me, because Russia's always been on the up and up.
Well, you know what? It's funny, though, because this film has had an enormous amount of criticism for its role of Georgians were just the nicest fucking people in the world. They were like, we might as well be watching the Citizens of Narnia. Narnia! Take a drink. Who are being oppressed by, the White Queen, because you've got like Andy Garcia as the president of Georgia, who apparently was picked because he's the president of Georgia's favorite actor. So what the hell, I guess.
Nice. Sure.
Who is great in the role, but he's like actually crying with passion when he's on camera, about how upset he is for his people. I mean, he's like this total martyr. And I don't know, it's like, it's even as you're watching it, you're like, okay, this is so, you can tell it's exaggerated, but I don't know. I didn't even know there was a Russian-Georgian war until I saw this movie.
True.
I mean, I'm sad, but what can you do? I don't watch
Well,
CNN
it's hard to wrap my
often.
head around what you just said about Andy Garcia being an emotional character in this film, because anymore to me, he's just like a celluloid gorilla.
I like that you like it.
I like that you like it. Tuss.
But this follows a journalist who has come from a sequence in Iraq early on where he watches his girlfriend, other journalist Heather Graham, get shot and killed.
Thank God.
By attack forces early on. Hey, if she's going to take off her clothes, she can stick around as long as she wants.
Oh, that's a good point.
That's the rule.
Does she take off her clothes?
That's the roller girl exception.
Yeah, see, that's why she gets killed in the first frame, is because she didn't want to take off her
Yeah,
clothes
she
this
didn't want to
time.
take off her clothes, so fuck it. That's why she's okay in Hangover, because we get to see her boobs.
This is true.
That she's allowed. So it's afterwards. He's in Georgia. He's there. They're not really even clear what they're doing. They're just kind of, there's obviously a conflict is starting to brew when the conflict flat out breaks out in the middle of a wedding that they're just kind of filming for why not, just to get a taste of the local color. Him and his cameraman, who, oh boy, I'm trying to find his name here, but he was the funny guy on the first 3 seasons of Coupling, if you ever saw that show. The guy who left for season 4. But the war breaks out, and these Russian planes bomb and firebomb this thing, and they kill almost everyone in the wedding party in a really disturbing and bloody as shit scene. These guys end up, the reporters end up helping the people there and are trying to, they're involved in their story, trying to get them back to their whole family, back to their surviving pieces of their family back together safely while trying to tell this story. In the meantime, these invading Russian forces figure out there are journalists there with cameras. The one guy has hidden the memory card of some of the really shocking footage he got. And you're going to tell us where the card is, yada, yada. There's a lot of convenient escapes. The problem with this film is that it's by Renny Harlin, quite frankly. And Renny Harlin,
how dare you,
wants to tell a serious story with his soul, but his brain is so used to making a Renny Harlin film that he just can't goddamn help himself. And it's got all the same staples you expect from an American action film. Sometimes it's not such a bad thing. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in here that actually is pretty goddamn entertaining to watch play out. God knows the explosions and special effects and the gore is pretty fucking remarkable. I mean, hell, I was into this, if nothing else, just to watch that shit, because it's non-stop. This movie keeps going. There's no slow parts. But instead of like a big brawny action hero like you usually get, or his wife,
or his wife.
Alternately, Gina Davis, you have this guy who is just Rupert Friend playing Thomas Anders, who's just kind of he's just kind of I don't know.
The creepy looking dude, if nothing else.
He's not really tough. He just kind of gets.
You can't expect to take somebody seriously as an action hero whose last name is Friend. I'm sorry.
That's the thing, is he's kind of a pacifist hero, and plus the fact
you don't say.
Just the fact that Val Kilmer is in it automatically makes
I'm loving the fact that Val Kilmer appears as Dutchman, the Dutch journalist.
They thought about this really hard.
What the hell? 1313.
Well, it's funny. It's killing me because there's a movie I saw recently about war journalists that had, God, what's his name who was in Cruel Intentions, the main actor? Ryan Felipe. And it was so much better than this. I mean, like, really, really spectacularly better than this. Really enjoyed the hell out of it. Plus, it was based, actually, on a totally true story, as opposed to conjecture.
Well, let me
it wasn't a perfect story of conjecture, or a perfect storm of conjecture around the events.
Okay.
But
what was the name of that movie?
I guess I really want to see what it is, because it's one of those films I really want to tell people, oh God, you should totally see this. And it's not. Oh, The Bang Bang Club. Thoroughly enjoyed this film, and it's another one of those ones that here largely just went direct to DVD. It was a South African thing, but. This is still this film, 5 Days of War. It's still a solid little film. I still enjoyed it. I mean, shit blows up real good. I don't know how else to say it.
That's Daniel Shariki in it, and she's gorgeous.
Oh,
so
she so
I'm
is.
tempted to watch it anyway.
Well, as long as this movie put Georgia on your mind, I think it was a success.
It hurts.
You're welcome, Internet.
We need more liquor.
Can we reference Narnia again, please?
Narnia, drink.
Turkish delight.
I need some bad right now. All right, so
It'll make you sick to your tumness.
Giveaways.
That was a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, it was a bit of a stretch.
They both start with T.
It's never stopped me before.
That's okay, Padawan. We're into the last giveaway, and you know what? This is one of the ones. The next to the Farscape set, I personally, as a full-blown geek, was the most excited about being able to hand out to you, because this is absolutely essential shit. Like, anybody who respects comedy on any level should already own this in one iteration or another, but the fact that this is the most... I mean, let's be honest. The main thing to like about this is just the most compact and easy to store version of the complete Kids in the Hall.
Kids in the Hall.
It's a nice transfer of it. It's on 22 discs, and I can fit the whole thing in my one hand, which is nice, as opposed to previous editions, which you would need to hold both of your hands in a cradle position to carry. This also comes with Death Comes to Town, the new Kids in the Hall movie that had come out, which is okay. I liked it. It's not
nice that it's included.
It's about as good as Brain Candy, which is a mystery why it wasn't included. Why that's not included in here.
That is strange.
But yeah, it's actually it's not even a movie. It's like a mini series really, but it feels like a movie, so we'll just call it that. But it's 5 full seasons of Kids in the Hall, along with all the original extras that came out in previous editions. Like I said, compact edition. These guys, they are, to my mind, the second greatest sketch comedy troupe next to Python only that has ever put out stuff, with Mr. Show running a close third.
And they're Canadian.
And well, that's by its nature, you're funny for at least a while.
Exactly. In the 90s.
Yeah, until you hit the Martin Short curse.
Damn you, Clifford.
I had so many people. Mike Myers.
Damn you, everything after Austin Powers, including Austin Powers.
Including Austin Powers. Yeah, Austin Powers in retrospect is hateful now because of how it was overindulged in.
Indeed.
Well, you know what, guys? That was remote viewing, the first episode, and I think that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I had fun. I don't know about the listeners, but I sure did.
We covered.
Drink more.
We do. Next time we'll drink a lot more.
Yes, indeed.
I meant if they didn't enjoy it, they should drink more.
We were drinking 3 times for every audio reference, so you figure out your own speed on that one. We know where we are. Well, like I said, once again with the giveaways, over the next week, which will be until the following Tuesday after this comes out, I will be appearing, just making posts in the comments of sites either from that I'm posting, of articles that I'm posting freshly, not before stuff that came out before this Tuesday, new stuff on either from me or from the Spill crew that just reference the title of one of these DVDs. When you see it, send me a message, not put on my profile, post on my profile, but send me a message from my profile page saying the time it was posted and what page it was posted on and what the words were that I wrote. And if you're the first person to do it, you'll be sent a copy of the film.
It could be in the comment section of this very show. You never know.
It could be. Maybe not, but maybe.
But only the Shadow knows. And that guy won't fucking tell us!
You better keep checking and checking and checking until even your mom says, you better just be combing your hair. It is time to come out of the bedroom. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us for remote viewing. We will see you back again in a month, because this is indeed, at least at this juncture, a once-a-month show. Hey, Brian, Luke, you guys are great. Thanks so much for doing this.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for letting me co-host despite your best judgment.
And until we come up with an appropriate way of ending this show...
I think I've got one.
Do you?
Yeah.
All right, go for it.
Stay tuned, everybody.